50 years ago today, on March 16th, 1965, 88.1 FM WCWP signed on the air for the first time. Welcome to this special broadcast marking this milestone here on 88.1 FM WCWP, Brookville, New York.
Wow, 50 years. Holy smokes. 50 years ago this afternoon, this radio station went on the air for the first time at 88.1 FM. WCWP. Now it's also online at WCWP.org, but we'll get into that later on, too. Welcome to a very special afternoon of coverage of this momentous event. My name is Jeff Kroll. I do not go back to 1965. Well, I do. I was 11 years old at the time. I was not here at WCWP. And I'm kind of your host here for the moment. And we're going to have a lot of people coming through the studio here and calling in. It's going to be a fun afternoon. The big moment will be 4 o'clock, which is the actual 50th anniversary of this station. And I'd like to introduce you right now to the gentleman who was the person that spoke at 4 p.m. on March 16th, 1965. He will recreate those words an hour from now. Hank Niemeyer. Hey, Hank, thanks for being here today.
Hi. Has anybody seen my defibrillator? I left it down here somewhere.
Yeah.
How you doing? Boy, I got to tell you, it is such an honor and pleasure to be here, really. I mean, I built this house. I laid some of the bricks out there, as a matter of fact. And, hey, here's something that most people don't know. I shoveled the first bit of dirt for the groundbreaking.
The groundbreaking.
Yep.
for this building.
For this building.
Now let's first start with the history of WCWP, which actually goes back prior to 1965.
Yes.
Actually went on in 1961 as a carrier current AM station just here on the well, it's now LIU Post. We of course
CW Post College.
CW Post College, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning because you're actually from that point as well here.
Yes, I was there when the AM station signed on the air, and that was Art Beltrone's baby. And for that first year, I got to tell you, we were in I guess something that might be considered a nice walk-in closet if you have an apartment in New York. And it was totally home-built, alligator clips and Scotch tape and so forth. And we had a little AM carrier current transmitter that was supposed to transmit to the dorms, but actually the signal-to-noise ratio was so atrocious that it was impossible, really, to hear anything. So what we did mostly that first year is play radio, learn how to do it, and, I can't imagine that anybody really listened because it was impossible to listen to. That was the first year. Second year, 62, we had a little, some better equipment, but still, that's when we really started to think in terms of the future.
Now, what was your major when you were here in college? Because there was no such thing as a communications major at that point here in the school.
That's right.
So
in those days, you had to pick a major the day you walked through the door.
Really, as a freshman?
That's right.
Well, but you could change. I mean,
of course you could change.
But
of course you could change.
All right, so
I mean, how much is it worth?
So you came to school here, and what was your major when you started as a freshman?
Biology.
Okay.
I was a bio major. In fact, my degree is in biology, and I can tell you.
So you followed right through all the way, and you didn't change.
No, I liked biology. I liked science. I also loved acting, and I liked art. And as it turned out, it was right at the beginning of my college career because I'm from the class of 64.
Right.
So even though the station went on in 65, it should be noted that at that time I was hired by the station to run it, although it was mostly, put together in my student days. At any rate, I got very interested in broadcasting. It was a lot of fun. Radio was still, Hi, how you doing?
They're coming in already. Here we go.
You can hear those
clunk.
Those doors
you hear the
clunking.
doors. Hey,
Yeah.
it's going to be that kind of day, folks.
Absolutely. But at any rate, we put together a radio station, and I just ran with it, and it became my career. I stayed in broadcasting all my life, even with a degree in biology.
That's great. So, Okay, so the carrier current station starts in 61.
That's right.
And you're on, you're off. I mean, but you, as you say, you're learning the craft here. You're learning radio.
Right. We're learning how to queue up records. We're learning we're learning what the word segue means.
Right. And who was doing this the education of the business to you folks?
Art Beltrone, class of 63, had worked at Sewanaka High School. In those days, Sewanaka High School had its own FM station, believe it or not, high school, WSHS. And he was a student at Sewanaka working on the radio station. So he's, it was natural for him, to do it. Now, he stayed with it that first year. He wasn't with it any year thereafter. But the second year that we were on the air is the year that Dr. Costin was given the reins as the faculty advisor. And it's because of him that we got most of the physical plant. So me, along with Costin, the two of us.
I'm
really
listening to every word. I'm just plugging people's microphones, headphones in, and I'm paying attention to every word.
Exactly. My wife says the same thing, but I'm not sure. And she plugs in the headsets and everything.
Now, the dream, though, was to eventually get to FM. Was this the dream all along, or what's the story on that?
Of course it was the dream. Hofstra had an FM station. Adelphi had an FM station. Why not we? This was the triumvirate, Hofstra, CW Post, and Adelphi. But of course, we were naive. But, we as students, as kids, we said, okay, we're going to have an FM station. It's that simple. Get an FM station. It was Costin, with his enthusiasm and his good humor and his ability to relate to students, who picked up the ball and ran with it. And basically, Dr. Costin is the guy who said, hey, we got to figure out how to do this. We got to talk to some politicians. We got to talk to the FCC. We got to find out, how do you get a license? How do you do it? Where are we going to do it? We're going to have our FM station here in this little broom closet? No, I don't think so. I think we should have a building. How are we going to do that? He started to call up. This was not a college mandate. This was the university did not mandate a radio station. It was basically a radio club that the students put together. And by the time we hit that FM thing, everything was in line. The college didn't have to do anything. They almost couldn't say no. We had all the bricks. We had all the electrical conduit. We had all that stuff was donated. And finally, we got in touch with Emerson Radio. Well, in the personage of Benjamin Abrams, and we got a huge infusion of cash that way.
And it all built up to 50 years ago today.
That's right.
When eventually WCWP got that FM license and went on the air. We're going to take our first caller right now, Hank, and then we'll get back to the story of the station. Right. Our friend Ted David is on the line here.
Ted, hey, Ted.
Hi, guys. Congratulations, everyone, and happy 50th anniversary to everyone.
Thank you very much, Ted, and thank you very much for the couple of liners you did for us. We heard your sterling voice with the ID at the top of the hour, and we will along the way here today. Ted joining us from Florida, sunny Florida today.
It's amazing.
Yeah, Florida. It's funny. I've got the buffered conversation going on my iPhone. I can't get it on my iMac. But as Hank was just saying, 50 years ago, I think we could barely figure out how to air check our own programs on oxide-coated tape.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we know for sure that nobody past Northern Boulevard much hurt us if there was fog.
That was on AM.
Still a little better than the AM carrier current, which Hank was just explaining. The noise was so poor that really it couldn't barely be heard in the dorms most of the time.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Hank, but didn't that actually play somehow or other through the electric sockets?
Yes. It was the 60 cycle circuit. That's carrier current. Carried it.
Okay.
So what was happening is no one could hear it because the signal to noise ratio for those people out there, it was noisy. It was like a lot of static and hum, brrr, and you hear little voices in the background. So, and first we were on 680 on your AM dial, 640. Then we changed it to 1280, thinking that might be better. Neither of those worked. Then somebody had the idea.
There was a harmonic of 640, right?
That's right. And then somebody had the great idea that if you pulled the plug out and reversed the polarity, just basically turned it 180 degrees. In those days, we didn't have polarized plugs. At least they weren't universal like they are now, so you could easily do that. And that helped sometimes, not always, but sometimes it would help. But it was really basically, as I said, we were playing radio.
So, Ted, when did you first set foot here into WCWP?
Well, I've told this story on a couple of occasions. I'll tell it again because it's so apropos here. I knew I wanted to get into broadcasting, and I was going to LIU in Brooklyn, and I found out, and they had no radio station there at the time, and found out that there was this WCWP, and I had an old Lloyd's radio, if you remember those.
Yeah.
An actual table radio with tubes in it,
right.
And on a good night, if I really strung the wires right, I could pick up this distant spark, as is the title of the newsletter for the Historical Society. I could pick up this frequency, the 88.1. So I started to listen and became very enamored of what I heard. My father and I took a ride out to the station. Well, we took a ride out the post and walked in the door, and the first person we met, and this was in 1968, was Bill Moser. Bill was the chief engineer. I think he had a second-class license at the time. I may be wrong. Maybe he had his first already. But, you know, in those days, Bill was walking around in a blue blazer and, you know, crisp white shirt. And that was the case for Bill all the time. I mean, even at ABC, you know, he was the guy that came in and ran the board for Ingram, and Bill was better dressed than the jock. You know, he had a crisp white shirt, French cuffs.
That wasn't hard to do with Dan Ingram, you know.
Well, you know,
having known him.
Ingram's clothing was very expensive. It just wasn't necessarily always, you know, top shelf in terms of style. But anyway, so we met Bill, and my father's my father's first impression of Bill was what probably sealed the deal. He said, "Boy, what a mature, intelligent, bright, well-spoken, thought out character that is. This is great." And look, you know, in those days, I mean, the racks, everything was so impressive. Shortly thereafter, Ken Phillips, the late Ken Phillips, would bounce around in front of the racks and talk about the Eastern Collegiate Radio Network, which I don't think actually existed, except that he told me it did, and put patch cords in and out of things and claimed it. You know, but in any event, so that was it. So got a transfer here, and even before I began the academic year in 1968, I was already driving back and forth during the summer, and met Larry Brodsky, who I saw in the pictures from the dinner, and Al Posner, and a bunch of the older timers. Judy Herbst was doing jazz, Andy Baer, and so Harry Lowenthal. So that's how that all started, and it took a while to get on the air, but I did. Annoyed a lot of the engineering people by either pinning the meters, or Moser used to scream and threaten that I was going to blow the voice coil, and I didn't even know what he was talking about. But I, you know,
well, just like Ken Phillips, Eastern Collegiate Radio say, there was no such thing as a voice coil.
Oh, okay. Even better.
Yeah, you fooled top to bottom.
Well, in any event, you know, there were all the threats and the meter readings and the faking the frequency deviation and all the crazy stuff that went on. But it was a wonderful experience, and you know, shortly thereafter, many of us, and see, this is where the kids today cannot begin to hope to have the opportunities we had. I mean, Larry Brodsky was already using the name Russ Lawrence, if I recall, and working out at WLIX commercially. Now, it may have been a 1,000-watt pot boiler at 540 on the AM dial, but, you know, it was a commercial station. And he introduced me to Warren Green, who was then the news director, and I started covering anti-war protests on campus and feeding him actualities for $5 a pop, and got my first commercial job. And so many other people. I remember Bill Moser invited to the station John, help me out here, George Flowers was one, and John...
Oh, yeah, George Flowers.
John Nelson.
I knew him from...
John Nelson, they both are working at GLI. And so we, as students at Post, got to meet real live radio broadcasters. And we had no idea whether these are small stations, big market, small market. It was just thrilling. And, McConaughey then, what the heck was his first name? Jim McConaughey was known as Jim McKay in the city on PIX and had been a staff announcer at ABC. So we were being exposed to some, real broadcasting people, and the opportunities were endless. They really were.
That's something that stands out to me, the opportunities. When we started the station, we weren't even thinking about what it might mean for the future of the students who would work here. For us, if you read the Post-Pioneer articles from that day, and the things we were saying, we were just talking about the station itself as being a major, in those days, public radio was called educational radio, which I don't know whoever thought that one up.
Yeah, we have the original Pioneer. We have some copies of it around, right. And I had mentioned to you earlier in the week when we were talking about there was some rumblings on campus. They were worried about where is this money going? Like, is it worth it? Yeah. Is it worth it?
By the way,
be spending money on it? There were some letters to the editor, stuff like that.
By the way, $130,000 is basically, what we figure the station, cost with everything put together, which I ran a little conversion, and that would be $790,000 today, in today's dollars. But the thing that I was going to bring up before is how this station actually, the thing about this station that will ensure its legacy is that so many people have gone on to careers in broadcasting and in related fields. I know Stuart Ain, I got a letter from him. He was one of the originals. And he went into, I think, print journalism.
Yeah, well, he's in print.
He's in print, right.
New York Times, Daily News.
Exactly.
He's been all over, sure.
Okay.
Ted, thanks so much for checking in with us. We have, I understand we have others that are desperate to get on the line here.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful celebration. I'm sorry I can't be there, but regards to all, and here's to the next 50.
Very good. And Ted, here's what you did for us.
You're listening to our special 50th anniversary celebration today, March 16th, here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
So there we go. That's Ted David. He joined us here on WCWP on our celebration of the 50th anniversary of this station. For those who tuned in along the way, my name is Jeff Kroll. And joining me at the moment is Hank Niemark, and we're very excited to have Hank with us because Hank was the first voice heard on this station when it signed on the air 50 years ago today at 4 p.m. So we are, let's see, it's 3:17. Did I study math enough to know we're about 43 minutes away from...
Yeah, 43 minutes away, and I still can't find my defibrillator. If anybody sees it, let's look for it.
And Ted, the first of what we expect to be many folks calling in, and we have so many dropping by here in the studio. We know we have a caller who's about to get through, and I hesitate. If I start introducing everyone who's standing in the studio, we're going to run out of time before the phone rings. So just hang in there, folks. Nobody's going anywhere, right?
Right. We're here for the duration.
That's good. You paid for the full tour,
the
right?
Next 50 years.
By the way, you guys from 1965, I just want to file one complaint with you. You had no foresight whatsoever.
None.
Nobody thought ahead to the fact that if we sign on March 16th, the 50th anniversary would end up being on a Monday afternoon. Nobody thought this through. I mean, if you had gone on, for instance, just on the 15th.
I did, because I figured if it was a Sunday, John Corcus might be able to be here in person.
But we're expecting John to call here any moment. John, if you're listening, call the number we gave you because we're waiting for your call. We know it was busy because Ted was on the line, but we're waiting for John. But
don't tell him
obviously, I'm joking.
Don't tell him where I am.
We did look ahead. The 100th anniversary of WCWP will also be a Monday. And you say, why did the dates change between... in the 50 years, but why will it be the same day of the week 50 years later? And the reason is, in the year 2000, there was no leap year due to one of these weird things where every so often you have to skip the leap year.
Yeah.
But there'll be no skip between now and 2065, and therefore, Monday will again be the day 50 years from now.
I'm so relieved because I thought at first you were going to say that when we started in 65, it was the Julian calendar. And we were moving over.
that old.
Gregorian.
It was that long ago. Yeah.
Feels that way.
Oh my goodness! But we've been catching up on the story of how WCWP got on the air in 1965. The license eventually came through. Now you were talking about all that was involved. That you kids, and you obviously kids at the time,
were kids.
just thought, hey, we want to be on FM. Let's just
Yeah, my father's paying for a college. Let's have a
right. Let's just hit a button or two and get on. But of course, there's a lot involved in getting FCC licensing.
That's where
and all
Costin.
that.
That's where Herb Costin comes in, and a man I miss tremendously. Died a couple of years ago, but without his enthusiasm and his foresight and his friendliness and his humor, who knows if we'd be sitting here now? In 88.1 FM.
And was it always geared to be at 88.1, or there was nobody cared what frequency you got? You just
do you want the real inside scoop on this?
Sure, love it. Wow, this is the inside scoop, folks.
I'm not going to tell too much.
All right.
Oh boy. Hey, Bill Moser. Here's the thing: the FM dial. It's in New York. Even the FM dial. And I said FM being the orphan stepchild at the time, it was crowded. 88.1. There were some stations in New Jersey. Am I right? That
88.3
cross-interfered.
Right.
But the idea was they were public school stations, and I think they had limited. So that's what helped us get it. We basically just inched into that little spot, to 88.1. And it helped us because at the time we were, the catchphrase was first on your FM dial.
That's right. I thought it was a great spot to be on the dial.
Yeah. In fact, later on I'll do one of the original. Can I do the original? Am I allowed to do the original?
Absolutely.
Station ID.
As long as it's.
Am I allowed to say?
As long as it's within the FCC guidelines, absolutely.
From the campus of CW Post College in Brookville, New York. First on your FM dial, this is WCWP.
Very good.
Was that right? You got it. Okay.
And now if you just add WCWP.org, and you can, that covers everything, because now this is certainly an advance that none of you could have foreseen 50 years ago. This station at times, as Ted was kind of jokingly talking about, there were times you wondered if you could hear it on the other side of Northern Boulevard. And now, due to this stream, you can listen to this radio station anywhere where there's internet in the world. It's amazing. And we've tried that out on trips. We've been halfway around the world and picked this station up in some far-flung places in the middle of the ocean on cruises and stuff. It's really cool to do that, I have to tell you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because, then it doesn't matter if you're 2 watts or 50,000 watts.
Yeah, and Ted's sitting there in Florida listening to us today, and others are listening in other spots of the country. So it's really... that's a major advancement. Who knows what will happen in the next 50 years?
Absolutely. And we were talking earlier about, these days it's not the radio anymore. It's the content remains the same, but it's the delivery, where it goes to. Does it go to your iPad? Does it go to your iPhone? Does it go to your computer? Does it go to your TV? Whatever. Your Sonos or your TiVo.
So the station signs on 1965, March 16th.
Yeah.
How was it determined that you, Hank Niemark, would be the first voice heard at 4 p.m. on March 16th, a thing we will commemorate? We're now 37 minutes away.
37 minutes.
Yeah.
How was it me? Are you serious about that?
Yeah.
There was no question.
There you go.
That it would be me. There was it was my baby. I was Mr. WCWP. I was like the student engine driving the whole thing. And, I'm not going to say that I didn't have, any ego involved there. I sure did, but...
Gee, you couldn't hear that through the mics, could you, folks?
But, no...
No backstabbing, nobody kind of angling to get in there. But I mean, all right, so you
Moser was outside knocking on the door, but we didn't know. He was in high school.
That's right. We will certainly get to that, too. Okay, so you're on here, and you're not the only one who was on. I mean, you signed on at 4 p.m., and then what happened at 4 and shortly thereafter? So you say hello, and you explain this.
There was an interview show, Dr. Costin. The interviewer was a student named Tom Teeny. And he went on to be an actor. I don't know what Tom did. But Tom Tini was the interviewer. He's a very good interviewer. The interview itself reflected the station, the tone of the station at the time, which is to say, a tad pompous. And I can explain why that might have been, but it was Costin and Dr. Hoxie, R. Gordon Hoxie, who was the president of C.W. Post College and the chancellor of Long Island University. And the two of them talked about, radio. Hoxie was saying stuff about, isn't radio dead? It's all television and,
Goodness, radio was dead in 1965.
There was. Smokes. No. As a matter of fact, by 65, it was doing a comeback. But there was a period of time when people said, well, radio's finished. Television now. Of course, we see here 50 years later at WCWP that, who knows? This might still be here 100 years.
And what did you do here on a regular basis on the air?
The kinds of programs that
and you the kinds of programs for the station, and then you personally, what did
I was a station manager.
So did you appear a lot on on the
once
air?
in a while I would do a show or two, but it was mostly jazz. We had jazz and a lot of classical. Now, here's something you have to remember about FM in those days. FM was not king, AM was king. FM picked up all the stuff that you wouldn't do on AM because, they weren't so worried about the audience. So it's, classical music, talk, literary programs, opera, show tunes, and things like that. And that's basically what FM... It wasn't going to stay that way for a long time because, the new music was, Dylan wasn't like a Rolling Stone in 1965? And that was a 6-minute cut. They couldn't play that on AM radio. They had to split it into two because they could only do 3-minute cuts. They needed to do... come here, Bill, if I'm wrong about this.
Mike is the
Mike, he's the musicologist, Mike, yes, our countdown guy, Mike Riccio.
At any rate, we followed that lead about, about FM. The other thing about keeping a kind of a not rock the boat kind of station. Don't forget, this station was student run. I think the college had reason to be a little nervous. And I think at some point they had good reason to be nervous. But at the start, we wanted to not, do anything that might be a little, we wanted to do something that reflected an institution of higher learning.
Right. Well, a number of years later, it did go off the rails, shall we say, and that led to our friend Mr. Moser, actually, the whole story that we'll get into with him along the way. It's how he joins. I think we have such a traffic jam here in the studio, we better say hi to some folks that Hank, you stay right there. That's quite all right. Mike, say hi. You've got the headphones on. You can say hi first. Mike Riccio joins us. And you were talking about like a Rolling Stone. You become like the countdown guy. But you started here. When did you first walk into this radio
I just want to say, Jeff, that I'm not missing the point that you're not following format. You have not played a top 5 record in 45 minutes. So.
And, if I don't get one of those lectures, I feel deprived. So
you got to play a record because we're all old and we have to go to the bathroom.
That's right. That's right.
And Like a Rolling Stone would be good. That would be the earliest bathroom records.
That's right. They got even better later on. Things like Hey Jude, 7 minutes. And
I actually started here in 1968. But the interesting thing about Like a Rolling Stone is that actually when it came out, WABC would fade it literally in the middle of the song. They had a radio cut that just faded out at the second to last verse. But the song, the record, and Bob Dylan started to get so popular that they just started playing the full version.
Oh, did they? They played the full version. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, but they did that to a large extent, and they had a lot of their special edits. Back in 1965, they played a special edit of the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, which a lot of people don't remember. They cut out the whole last verse because Bill, our friend Rick Sklar, our friend Rick Sklar had some doubts about it. Right. It was... It really was a different time, a lot of different music.
You were always interested in rock and roll. I know I've heard you tell these stories, how you always followed the playlists and the countdowns, and you were into top 40 radio. So the moment you walked in the door here to this radio station, is that you get into that like right away?
Well, one of the good things about this station was that it was set up so that whatever you wanted to do, whatever kind of format you wanted to get into, it was a great training ground, as Ted said on when he called in. And one of the nice things was that of the people who wanted to get into the commercial side of radio, it was a great forum to learn Top 40, to learn how to follow formats. A lot of us went on to the commercial stations. I was working at WBLI and still being here, and we had the music clocks over there, no two slow records together, no two females back together. So it taught those concepts really well, as did the people who want to get into the progressive side, progressive radio.
You bring that up, and I started to say something about that. We started the station, and we thought about the station as a shining example of what a radio station in a college could be, never thinking that actually it was going to be a springboard for so many people. And when I look back, when I think about it, that's the thing that gives me the most satisfaction about this place. All the people who were able to take what they got here and parlay that into a career. So, this is the beginning of it. And that is a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing to know that you have had a hand in doing. And it's, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, it was everybody on every level of professionalism. We're talking about, of course, I was more into the commercial side with the Top 40. People like Bernie and Bobby were with the progressive radio. And Bill, of course, holding things up on the technical side and sneaking out all those inside WABC playlists for me to help me out. I'd never tell anybody. I promise I never will, Bill. To this day, I won't say a word.
Statute of limitations is definitely up. It's really okay.
So it really was a great forum and a great place to learn, and I've always been very proud to be associated.
And I got in on that. I mean, Mike helped train me as far as on-air work, and certainly helped me as I progressed into this business. So it was a great learning ground.
There's also something else less tangible about this place, and I think it's unique among other college radio stations, and that's how close we're all feeling to each other. We all feel the thread. We're all connected to this, and there's something about it. There's a spirit here that's defining it, and who knows where that comes from. But it has, through the years, has always, and that's why through thick and thin, and so through some of the thin, that it still was able to maintain a cohesion.
And joining us now, sitting here, and we are thrilled to have him here today, is Bill Moser, longtime director of broadcasting here at WCWP. And I would say of all of us, and there's quite a crowd here in the studio, Bill would know more overall about the 50 years of this place than anyone. We're so glad to have him here today. Great to see you here, sir.
Thank you.
Your comments so far, I mean, you've just been told about these... Actually, they said some nice things. I think Hank, maybe that's John, who didn't call us on the other line. Maybe he's calling you on your.
No, this is not my phone.
Well, that's not your phone.
I've muted it.
Somebody's ringing. It's not it's not the house phone, but that's all right. Anyway, Bill, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And you first. Now, you are not an original from 1965. When was the first time you set foot in this place?
I stepped in June of '65.
June of '65, so they signed on the air March 16th.
And I was just a high school kid and walked in the door. My mother-in-law was an administrative person over in the School of Business, and she wasn't my mother-in-law at the time, but that sounds odd.
Yeah.
But she was with Dean Pressmack over in the School of Business, and that's how I got my foot in the door over here on the campus, and I had the delightful experience of working with Hank and John Corcus and just an endless list of other people.
Libretto's
John Libretto.
Yeah, he's calling.
But it was we were heading into the summer months in 1965, and the staffing was we were short-staffed.
It's going to be an issue, yes.
So here's this high school kid coming in, just recently graduated, and I was given the opportunity to go on the air and do stuff here, which, again, was quite unique in the scheme of most radio stations. You don't walk in the door and get an opportunity to, here, kid, do something.
Yeah. You're going in here with an amateur, you're coming back a star.
I just want to continue a thought that Hank started here. As I've always described this place, it's not a radio station as much as an extended family. There are marriages, there are people in this room. You and Pat are an example of people that met here. Harry and Joan Lowenthal started their radio career here, as well as a relationship, which resulted in. So there, I think, about 5 or 6 marriages that I'm aware of that resulted from the station.
See that? You mentioned Harry, and here he comes right down the path. There you go. Harry Lowenthal is on his way in, so we'll speak to him in a moment.
Well, some of us are in wheelchairs with oxygen bottles on, and those walkers you get to go on JetBlue.
and don't worry about my defibrillator anymore. Harry's
here. Okay, Harry always has one. All right, so Bill, now, so you come in basically on the engineering side of things. You were considered a technical whiz back then, or?
Well, I'm trying to think how I evolved into the position as chief engineer, which was a few years later, actually. And then, of course, there was this major blowout in 1969 when Steve Post was hired from WBAI, who replaced Jim McConaughey as the station manager, station director. And Steve had thought, I think naively, that he had carte blanche to put programming on the air that was kind of along the same lines of a liberal attitude that WBAI had projected over the years. And there was a program which featured a simulated female orgasm on the air, if I can say that word. And needless to say, the administration blew a fuse. They could not believe that this had actually happened. And I was summoned to Dean Mates' office, Dean Mates' home in Locust Valley. And they were wild. This was within hours. They had pulled together a committee and decided the station had to be closed down. And they asked me, I was the chief engineer at the time, to disable the transmitter. So my next task was to come up here and remove the crystal and the final amplifier tube from the transmitter. Station, and it was closed down for months. And the university felt that perhaps, I don't know why, but they thought that by leaving the building open, that somehow this would work its way out. But what happened here was that there was an encampment of people who claimed to have our radio station. And I kind of challenged some people here. I said, I've never seen you here before. I mean, how can you qualify this as your radio station? So it was a little presumptuous to some of these people, but the place became a pigsty. It was a garbage pail. And in about 3 months, the university had its fill of allowing this encampment here. And they called me back again into President Payton's office and said, "We're going to throw these people out. We have to do something to get station back on the air. What can you do to help us?" And I said, "Well, I know there's some very, very responsible people on both sides of the political and music fence. There was the progressive faction here and the top 40 faction." But both of these people, both of these groups were very, very involved in the station and very dedicated to the station, although they just had maybe differing political philosophies as well as music interests. So with people like Frank D'Elia and Ted David, we were able to put the station back on the air with a very, very limited staff for a few hours, and was able to get the best of the folks that were involved in the radio process before the major shutdown. And Steve Post was summarily fired, and eventually I was asked if I wanted to continue in that position as director of broadcasting, and that continued from I guess 1970 all the way up until almost 1990.
Right.
Yeah, 20 years.
20
That's
years.
it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a haul.
And one of the things that I always felt I had a responsibility to carry on the tradition that the folks, my predecessors like Hank, to create an atmosphere here of learning and create a radio station that was a service to the community. So I had a tremendous responsibility, I felt, to carrying on that tradition.
All right, just going to pause for just a moment. We're going to take a quick call from someone from much later in the process here. Mike Shameri is on the phone. Hey, Mike, welcome aboard.
Hi, guys.
And now, just when I say much later, what year did you start here at WCWP?
2001.
See, that's
October 5th.
Definitely. Oh, boy, right down to the date. We have the actual date. Mike has become like our station historian. He takes pictures and videos of every event we have, and we appreciate it very much. Mike, thanks for joining us today. I presume you just want to say a happy 50th to everybody, huh?
I do. Happy 50th anniversary to WCWP 88.1 FM.
Very good. And thanks for joining us, Mike. Mike Shameri here at 88.1 WCWP. As a reminder, this is our special coverage of the 50th anniversary of 88.1 FM WCWP, a station that signed on the air at 4 in the afternoon on March 16th, 1965. We are just under 20 minutes away from marking that milestone on the actual 50th. Hank Niemark is with us. He was the first voice heard 50 years ago today, and he will again at 4 p.m. speak the same magic words. It worked pretty well the first time around. We'll let him, we'll let him do it again.
This time I'm doing it in Yiddish.
Okay.
But I got a letter here. There is somebody who worked at the station in the very, very early days and continued on to FM, Andy Heidecker, who lives in Arizona now. He sent me a letter and he wanted me to read it on the air, and
by all means, go right ahead.
I'm going to do that because he's one of the people that goes way back and stayed with it. Jay Elswag, I wonder if he's going to be here today. He
has said he would stop by, so he might along the way.
Yeah, he goes all the way back there too. But this is from Andy Heidecker. Congratulations to WCWP on the 50th anniversary of the station. I was there on day one, and my heart is still with the station. I started with WCWP when they were in the old stable area as a carrier current radio station. He lives in Arizona now, and listen to this. He lives in an adult community who are in a process of putting together an FM radio station, a low-power station for the community. They have the FCC construction permit. The call letters would be KSCW LP. I guess that means low power, am I right? LP, and awaiting delivery of the antenna. I remember the old Gates transmitter. This is going to be very interesting to people tuning in. I remember the old Gates transmitter and the Collins transmitter. Our new transmitter is a little bigger than a deck of cards. WCWP was an experience I will never forget. Hopefully this year when I get back to Long Island, I will have an opportunity to visit the station. Sorry he cannot call in and talk, and he sends a call out to you and me right here.
Very good. That's nice. We appreciate that. So Hank Niemark joining us, Bill Moser joining us as well. My name is Jeff Kroll. It's really an honor to be hosting this event here this afternoon. We have one quick call we want to get in. Mike Hendricks is calling from up near the Canadian border is where he lives, and he joins us today. Hey, Mike, good of you to call in.
North. Up in the Great White North, yeah. Just thinking, I was listening to what Bill was saying. We've been listening for the last little while, and I got to say, my fondest memory of coming out of the military and back to school after working in Armed Forces Radio and then working with Bill, and I swear I learned more in the time I spent at WCWP than I did anywhere else about everything, about radio, music, the whole 9 yards, and I've never forgotten that. And like I said to you online when we were talking on Facebook, I think yesterday, it's family, and it always will be. It's my home away from home, and I always feel that way, and I'm so honored to be a part of that.
Very good. Thanks for checking in with us. Now, what year did you first set foot here in WCWP?
About 1980, fall 1980.
Okay, fall 1980.
And I was out in 84 in spring of 84.
Well, once it's in your blood, we can't get you out of here. We've tried. We've tried to drive Mike away, but nothing works. He's still...
As a matter of fact, you'll be hearing me Thursday night on The Rock Show.
On The Rock Show. Oh, as long as we're plugging, yes. The Rock Show is a program... is a program heard Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 right here at 88.1 FM. Different hosts, different themes, and I happen to be in the rotation of that as well. And I'm on Wednesday night, so I'll plug you, Mike. We'll
Bernie asked me to fill in for her at the last minute, so it's the show, and it should be on Dan's server about now. That's the pleasure, the wonderfulness. I can still be a part of the radio station, even though I'm miles away, 3-4 hour drive away. I can't make the drive, but at least I can contribute, that way. And that's what makes it so amazing. Like Bill was saying about the web and everything, and you were saying going around the world and being able to listen to the station.
It is
I've
something.
listened to the station in New York, in California, in Florida, in just about everywhere I was at one time or another on the web. I was able to listen on my iPhone.
Very
Don't even
good.
need a computer.
Mike, thanks so much for checking in with us this afternoon. We appreciate that.
A famous person once said, Mazel Tov.
Okay. And we'll hear from you Thursday night here at 88.1.
Radio.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Jeff. Bye-bye.
I just want to give a shout-out here. Sitting to my right is Harry Lowenthal.
Yes, I wanted to get Harry on here
Right.
because... go ahead.
Harry started when cables were made out of wood. So, Harry, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine.
Good.
It's nice to be here. I made it 50 years.
Harry was the first chief engineer of FM, and I think it's been said a few times at the beginning of this program how absolutely state-of-the-art for 1965 this place was, and in no small measure was this was Harry's doing, along with Leroy Brown, with Brownie.
That's right.
And a few other people. Hal Schneider, by the way. Do you remember Hal? Hal Schneider.
Now that you mention it, yes.
Yeah, Hal Schneider was here with you, right? And we, it was like, it's not like you open a box and there's a radio station kit in it. It's like you have to build a radio station, even though there are components there. And Harry was instrumental in making this the station that it was.
So then, Bill, when you become chief engineer, are you actually taking that over from Harry, or is there someone in between, or how did that progression work?
Well, I don't know.
Caught you out of the blue with that one.
I don't remember. Bob Fratello was the chief engineer in between.
Okay.
Hello,
Yeah,
Bob Fratello.
Now that you mention that, yes.
Yeah, Bob Fratello. Right.
Well, Harry went on to teach some courses. I took your radio course here, and thanks to you, I actually have a half an idea how what I'm saying now actually goes out over the air, but I only have maybe half of it. So, but I've remembered a little bit of it. I actually rembered some of that. So,
Right.
Yes, I
That
came
was
back
good.
to the station, I guess it was 3 or 4 years later.
Okay. Did you stay in broadcasting, or you were in electronics?
Well, I didn't stay in broadcasting
Right.
because I wasn't making any money. So.
Right. Yeah, very few of us.
Well, here's an interesting connection. Harry and Rick Hammiter were at worked at the station here at different times, and there was a need for measuring the output of the transmitter. I called a company called C Train or something over in Port Washington. They had a watt meter. But they also had asked whether or not we had anybody that had an engineering background. And I don't know whether or not I referred them to you or to Ricky first. And you guys didn't know each other. But then as a result of that connection, both of you wound up working for that company. Subsequently, they went out of business, and subsequently, you guys bought the business. They were a huge Motorola service center. And you guys parlayed that business into multimedia communications, which has turned out. How many years later you guys been in business?
A long time.
A long time. Well, you were in.
And, well, this is a direct result of having worked at.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
At
it's a
one time, it was
springboard.
out of Ricky's home in Huntington, and then you guys moved to Babylon, and now you have corporate space in both Manhattan as well as out in Hauppauge. So another example of people hooking up, but you guys are just exemplary in terms of parlaying a relationship that started here into a very successful business model.
We had a dinner Saturday night commemorating the 50th anniversary of this station, and I was actually talking to Rick about those days in which the two of you, back in, this is a long time ago, gave us some wireless equipment to play around with at homecoming events and things, toys that we never had before, and we had a lot of fun with those, and then we would pack them all up and get them back to you at the end of those weekends. The guys were great to us. I'm going to sneak one more call in while we have a moment. Bruce Leonard is on the phone. Mr. Leonard joining us.
Good afternoon, and congratulations, WCWP Radio.
Okay,
and
thanks for calling, Bruce. It's been a pleasure.
I'll talk to you later.
I talk to you so often that
Well, we can't talk Islanders now. We'll talk at some other point.
Right.
To leech a little bit off of what other people have said, what Ted was saying earlier about family, what we saw at the dinner the other night, it's just amazing to me that we're still talking, period. I got to work with Hank and with John Libretto, but not at WCWP. I got to work with them in television at NBC in the city.
Right.
It's a small world.
Yep,
We
absolutely.
all got to know and worked, and the people you respect and knew what they were doing, and they learned at WCWP. They moved on, and they're still successful, and it's been a pleasure to know everyone.
Absolutely.
That's great stuff.
I'm just thrilled. I don't want to take up your time. I'm watching we're coming up on 4 o'clock here.
Yeah, we are exactly 10 minutes away from the big moment, the 50th anniversary of WCWP. Bruce Leonard, thanks so much. Oh, I've been asking everybody who calls, and I have to do it officially. What year did you start here at WCWP? Just
That was
folks
1970.
There you go. See, as long as you can still answer the question, you still got it, sort of together.
Well, I wrote it down years ago just in case you ever asked me that.
Yeah.
All right.
If anybody says 1948, you'll know it's one of those people who camped out here.
And Bill is the guy, same story as Ted. I walked in the building not knowing a thing. Bill's the first guy I ran into, and it's your fault, Bill, that I'm still doing this.
I got to tell you, when I started on the AM station, and Art Beltrone was the head of the whole thing. It was basically, I remember the first thing I ever learned was the word segue.
That's it.
That was, and that's called a segue, and we write it seg, and I remember that completely.
Hey, Bruce, thanks a lot for checking in.
Take care, guys. Thanks
Okay.
again, and congratulations one more time.
Okay.
WCWP.
Thought I'd sneak that in there. Sounds nice,
It's about time. 8.5 minutes.
Oh, boy, 8.5 minutes away. Oh, it's getting crazy time here at WCWP. Welcome to the 50th anniversary coverage of the big moment, March 16th, 1965. This station on FM. We went over the story earlier, how it had originally been an AM carrier current station here on the campus. The FM station signed on the air at 4 in the afternoon on March 16th, 1965. It was a Tuesday that particular year. And here we are on Monday, the 16th of March in 2015. Oh, we have the guest. We've been waiting for this person for a long time. John Corcus is on the line.
Oh, my God, he found me?
He found us. Go ahead, hang up. We got it. John, welcome to our coverage here at WCWP. Welcome aboard.
Hello, fellas.
Hello.
I'll leave you and Hank together, and I'll just go out and get a sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
And Bill and Harry. Hi, guys.
Yeah,
Hey, John.
right.
Hey, John.
Definitely. John, we wish you were here.
Before I forget, because I went on the air with you guys the first day.
Yeah.
Before I forget it, in 1965, in the lounge there, I left a pen.
Yeah.
Could somebody look?
Well, there's a quill.
That sounds and a
It's
candle next to it, right?
It's some candle made out of tallow.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, by the way, look at this, John. Look who just walked through the door. Ron K. Wolf. Come on in, Ron.
You gotta
Just
be
kidding. Yeah, of course I'm kidding.
You gotta be kidding.
Yeah, right. John, we were just talking. Now, you were with us, right? You were one of the originals from 1965. You were, and still are, a huge jazz fan.
Oh, yes.
And you were a... And what position did you hold at the station at that time?
Well, when I started with you guys, I'd gone to... I was lost in college. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. And I couldn't choose a major subject. And I wandered into the basement of some building.
College Hall.
I guess, yeah. And they weren't operating then, but I guess they had been.
Yeah.
And I heard some guy have a near hysterical argument with someone who he was almost screaming that popular music was insipid.
Oh, I know who that was.
I don't know who it was, but I kind of had second thoughts that I wanted. But then somebody, I think you were the first, Hank, you were the first person I actually had a conversation with. Mm-hmm. And I found out that they were putting this building together, what it was going to be. Yeah. And I signed on as quickly as I could, and then you gave me a slot to do a late-night jazz show, and I prepared. And they had an amazing collection, by the way. They're phenomenal LP collection of music.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was donated or whatever. And I went on the air the first time, and I remember I froze up, and they were playing a record, and I stepped out of the studio, and you kind of talked me down, because I had never thought about it. I said, "Oh, it'll be automatic." And you said, "Hey, use your sense of humor, be yourself." Yeah. And you slowly got me into a groove, and from there it was much easier. Mm-hmm. The WCWP was the center of my college life, and when I graduated in '67, I became assistant program director somewhere in there. Right. And then when you got drafted and Cosman became station manager, I became program director. Right. I don't know how good a program director was, but I liked doing it. But I kept my jazz show faithfully. And then eventually also Mark Haynes, the late Mark Haynes, and I did a comedy show on Saturdays at 1 called 2 at 1. Mm-hmm. And I nearly flunked out of school because I was in the radio station all the time.
That was an issue. Now, I got to tell you, here's a name from the past who I ran into in Boston.
Yeah.
Norman J. Fox.
Oh, my God.
Norman J. Fox, actually, I think he was kicked out. He worked for the radio station.
Wow.
And, had a show. He had a... what mellifluous, dulcet voice. He was basically the guy who did all the station breaks.
He had an old-time radio announcer's delivery.
Yeah, and he used to hold his hand up to his ear. Remember that one?
That's right.
Like the guy on Laughing.
And wore a necktie.
And he wore a bow tie. At any rate, I spoke to him. I said, "Whatever happened? You sort of fell out or something like that." He said, "I flunked. I flunked out, but they let me back in." He said because he was spending all this time at the radio station. And I imagine that is a problem, especially with young people. And, you get so involved in it.
I remember we used to sit in our cars because, some of you younger guys and girls may not know that when we first started and the station was built, there were no buildings in front of it.
Oh, that's right.
It was all woods.
We were in the boonies.
Yeah.
We were sloshy boonies, right?
That lasted into the 70s.
Yeah.
They didn't build this Hillwood Commons until the early 70s, opened in 1974. So we tracked the mud in like everyone else. We're coming up a little over 3 minutes away from the big moment. Yeah. I don't want to interrupt you guys when we get to the top of the hour, but we want to stay legal with the FCC. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play this right now, and then you can continue the conversation. Okay. And this way we can sweep through 4 o'clock, and you can take charge.
50 years ago today, on March 16th, 1965, 88.1 FM WCWP signed on the air for the first time. Welcome to this special broadcast marking this milestone here on 88.1 FM WCWP, Brookville, New York.
There we go. So now we're legal. All right,
okay.
We can continue on. I'm Jeff Kroll, your host, and John Cork is still on the phone. Hank Niemark, Bill Moser, Harry Lowenthal manning the microphones at the moment.
Right. Now, if you guys want me to sort of be quiet or step out for a bit and you continue, I can always join up.
What do you want to do it for? It's your moment.
We will tell you when to. Who's calling? Actually, Libretto is calling around 4 o'clock, and I tried to work it out so there'd be a three-way, but I don't think it can actually happen.
Can you come up with a different term? Because I think
No, it was actually on purpose, and I was hoping somebody would get it, and you finally did. Right. Oh, here it is. Somebody finally came in with my defibrillator. Thank you very much. Now I'm happy. Now I can breathe.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do in 2 minutes, John, I am going to, at the exact moment of the 50th anniversary, I'm going to say the very first words that I said 50 years ago. Right. And right now we're about a minute 45 away.
Okay.
So we may tell you to shut up by then. John, what have you been doing with your life ever since you left here?
Well, I've been an actor for 40-something years.
Yep.
And still am. And one of the reasons I'm not out there with you today is that I also spent a lot of time teaching scene study at the Stella Adler Studio of Acting here in Manhattan. And I worked tonight. Yeah. So I wouldn't have been able to time it so that I was a little worried about missing this group I have to teach.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd be sitting there with you guys.
Well, it would be great to have you here, and but it's almost as good to have you on the phone here with us. Really.
What I do, you can stop me at any second.
I will.
what I did want to underline was, we were college kids.
Yep.
And there were pranks and there were romances, and we did everything college kids did. But we ran a professional operation, and we kept a schedule every day.
Yeah.
And we were faithful to it, and
right.
we were faithful to our license, and we knew that. And it was rather amazing when you think back on it.
That is absolutely the thing that has kept this station going. John, I'm going to cut you off here because Libretto has to call in, and we're coming up to the exact moment. And if you wait for me, I'm going to be so John, we'll be talking soon. Okay. So
great to talk to all you guys.
Okay, same here. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
3 seconds.
Stand
2,
by and
1. You're on.
WCWP FM is on the air. And actually, WCWP FM is still on the air.
Yes, it is.
And thank you. Those were my first words.
50 years ago.
Exactly. 50 years to the second, nearly.
That's right.
And I got to tell you, it is a distinct honor and pleasure. I'm thrilled to be here doing this, and it was just great for you guys to allow me to do it, and it really feels good. I got to tell you, because WCWP, with all my success in the field I chose to be in, which was broadcasting, although I still consider WCWP as one of the most significant things I've ever done. In some ways, the most significant things I've ever had a hand in doing, because of the thread that goes back, the fact that it's still going on, and as I spoke of earlier, the spirit that keeps everybody together here, and I don't want to get I'm you all know what I mean. I don't have to get too far into it, but that's it. And I do love you all. I really do. And
well, it's a special moment for all of us. WCWP is now officially 50 years old, the FM station, and it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. If you've kind of stumbled in along the way, what is going on, the 50th anniversary of this radio station took place about 1 minute and 45 seconds ago at 4 o'clock this afternoon. WCWP FM 88.1 on the dial turned 50 years old. My name is Jeff Kroll. It's really been an honor hosting. And this afternoon we have Hank Niemark, who he just recreated the words he spoke 50 years ago. That's been fun. Bill Moser's been with us. Joining us right now is another alum. Now, he does not go back to the beginning, but close. Joe Hunterkamp is with us. You first started here when, Joe?
September of 1970.
September 1970.
I walked into this building. There was nobody here except a funny-looking guy named Mel Rosen doing a show called Small Circle of Friends.
Yeah.
And he said, we're going to make you a big deal tonight. We're going to put you on the radio. So I sat in there. He opens my mic. All the needles in the room are jumping to my voice. I said, this is something. I got to come back here tomorrow.
This is fun. And he's been hooked ever since.
Ever since.
Before we go any further, we all would like to congratulate you. Joseph just retired from NBC Radio and Television. 40 years.
Almost
30 Rock.
Yeah,
40 at 30 Rock. Mm-hmm. And your last official day was?
Well, it's actually Friday. Of this week coming up.
You're still working. So never mind.
I get to walk out of there with anything that's not nailed down for 2 days.
Yeah, but Joe is retiring after 40 years there. That's exciting. We actually got to work together years ago. That's a very long time ago now. I left there in 1982, so that's quite a ways back. But we had a blast. We had a blast back in those days. That was fun working. That was in radio, and Joe, of course, been in television now for many years. So
yes.
That's good stuff. Joe is a weather buff. He helps me out when I host the rock show here on WCWP, as I will coming up this week on Wednesday. And Joe likes to call in and give us some weather. Joe has actually researched what the weather was 50 years ago today, right?
Yes, it was nothing happened that day with precipitation. All the action was here.
All the kind of a normal March day, right?
Your temperature range was 37 for the low and 48 was the high for that day.
Okay.
Dead on, even normal.
Not much different than today.
Right. And the whole winter was like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was. Oh, so that was not.
We can say.
That was not a 65, 66. Actually, was a very snowy winter. Had a lot of big storms, but not that one, huh?
No.
Okay. So there we go. We've got the weather. We've got a lot of. We haven't had any chance. We have all kinds of stuff here about what was going on in 1965.
Can I just say one thing?
Can
that
say
I'm
anything
looking
you
around
want,
at
Hank.
everybody. That day, there were a lot of people here.
Yeah.
A lot of people were nervous. We were seeing, it was kind of a lot of pomp and circumstance. And all the guys were in suits and ties. And everybody was smoking. That, I think, is the thing that if you were to go back to 1965 and sit in here and watch it all happen, is the thing that you would probably most remark about how much smoke there was.
And this was a brand new building.
It
This
didn't
building
matter.
was
Nobody
just
thought,
built.
smoke was good for everybody. It was good for the building.
Building hadn't even been dedicated yet. The plaque inside in the
That's
lobby
right.
says that it was dedicated on April 21st. So a little
exactly.
over a month later, before the building was officially dedicated, and yet here his station was on the air. So that's good stuff. So, Joe, thanks very much for joining us today. A pleasure to have you, and I look forward to our meetings on the Rock Show. Wednesday night, we're going to get to chit-chat for a change?
Top on my list.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Also joining us, a gentleman I got to say hi to on Saturday night at our dinner. Larry Brodsky's here. Your name came up a little earlier. Did you mention, or Bill?
No,
one of you guys mentioned.
I heard
Larry.
Ted say my name.
Oh,
in vain.
Ted's the one.
I was listening in the car on the way over here.
Yeah.
And I heard Ted say my name.
Yes, he did.
And I realized that when he first came up here, I auditioned him.
You auditioned him?
I did remember that.
So your first time here at WCWP was?
I started here in 1966.
66. So
and I can tell you how I wound up here.
Go right ahead. We want to hear.
I was in the cafeteria on the other side of campus, and I had become friendly with somebody by the name of Ron Stone. Remember Ron Stone? Little guy. And he said, well, I'm involved with this radio station. You might find that interesting. And I said, there's a radio station here? I knew nothing about it. He says, come on, let's go take a walk through the woods. I'll show you.
Yeah, you have to go through the woods.
And we took a walk through the woods.
Didn't know where this place was.
And I said, my God, look what they got going on here. This is terrific. Let me become a part of this. And I did. And it became my home for 3.5 years, and it was wonderful.
That's great. And then from here, you went on to. Did you stay in broadcasting stuff? I mean, I know you did.
In the beginning, I did.
In the beginning, you did. And how long did you stay in it?
I had a job. I was working on Long Island Radio, WLIX, for a while, and that was while I was still here. Then we did a little. Then I had a summer job at WOR. FM, which we were the first rock station on the FM
rock
band
and roll.
at the time. Got to work with people like Scott Muni and Marie the K and people like that, and that was a lot of fun. And came back, finished college, and started looking for a job, and just got discouraged, I guess, quickly. And kind of interestingly, though, but somebody who had left the industry, this made such an indelible became such an indelible part of my life. I went into sales and spent 45 years, giving presentations to people. And I have got to say, without the period of time that I spent at WCWP, there is no way I could have stood up in front of a group of 50 people with no notes.
That's
and
it.
Gave a different presentation every time based on how they reacted to me. That was just pure WCWP.
Yeah, your radio roots always kicked in every time you get up in front of a
Absolutely.
crowd. That's terrific stuff, and it's very nice of you to come by this afternoon.
Well,
it's
thank
great.
you very much, Jeff.
It is quite a day.
It's always fun to come back and see this place.
And to hear that number, 50 years, it's kind of
scary.
staggering. But I've been playing with it in my head for months as we prepared for this, so I've kind of gotten used to it. But I think it's hitting some people kind of like, wow, 50.
Although the building looks kind of different these days. We only used to have two studios. There was Studio B over there for news, and the big room was Studio A. I think they designed that primarily for television originally, didn't they? That with the high ceilings and everything.
There was some thought that we would, because of the way people felt that radio was maybe on the way out, that we would be a television station. No one really had the knowledge of what it takes to do a television. The lighting and the camera work and the whole bit. It's radio is much easier, and so that never happened. I'm sure it would have been a really good television studio anyway. But that's really what they thought.
Well, I told Hank earlier, this studio didn't actually go on as a studio until 1974. It's the first time. Bill Moser and the late Bill Epperhart, our great friend, built a beautiful studio in here. It was based on the WABC Music Radio Board. That was the dream, to have a board like that. And so we got to play games in here, playing top 40 music on a board that was just like the one at ABC. And that was a kick to operate. We had a lot of fun in the studio.
We had a different board than that.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot different. And when they originally built it, the board faced a different direction, and the window wasn't here until 1980. So, the place evolves over time, but it's the same building. 1965.
We're doing this radio show on an iPad. That's what it's come down to.
Pretty much. Well, the pots can be changed around to whatever we need, and I have everything that we need today. It's not much. It's mostly chit-chat.
It fits in your pocket.
It does. It does. It does. Larry, thanks again for
You're very welcome. Thank
for
you
stopping by.
Thank
and
you
now,
again, Jeff.
we're trying to get to we have a lineup here that they took numbers. I think they're lined up down the hall. Bernie Bernard is joining us, and Bernie goes back quite a ways here at the station, but is also teaching here at LIU Post at the moment, and couldn't join us at 3 o'clock because she was in the middle of a class.
That's right. And Hank was the guest lecturer today.
That's
too,
right. Hank
class,
was.
so
I heard Hank was lecturing the students and pumping them up. And I mean, they left here like all. Well, Hank has that way about him. Yeah, everybody pumped up.
It was a great class. Thank you.
So you go back to the station as far back as
1968.
Now,
September of 1968.
Did I just commit a faux pas asking a lady about?
No, everybody knows. Everybody's saying what year.
Well,
they
I knew
started,
it.
so
I knew it. I just wanted you to say it.
No problem at all.
And when you first started here at WCWP, what did you do? I mean, I know by the time I got here, you had your progressive show at night and stuff, but what did you do when you first started here at WCWP?
Well, I have to say that I chose Post because of the radio station. I had a couple other choices, University of Miami, whatever. But I loved the station. I actually started listening to it when I was in high school. So I knew, and as fate would have it, my roommate's boyfriend, a guy by the name of Ed Registrato, worked here. And she said, "Oh, you got to go over there and talk to my fiance." And so from day one, the next day I moved into the dorm. The next day I made a beeline over here. And the first thing I did was news, actually. And then I worked into a rock show on the Carrier Current AM station. And then graduated to FM pretty quickly.
So it was the sort of thing where you were on AM, and then it was very exciting to kind of move up to FM.
Right, and that was sort of the training ground. That's the way everything was set, where you would do your time on the campus AM station, and if you were good enough, then you'd get to FM. So,
is there a campus an AM station?
Yes, we have a campus station that goes out.
It's an internet.
There is. It's an internet
only.
only. So it's not AM in the sense like you had it, but it's called web radio, and yes, and they usually do their shows from next door, the original studio here at WCWP, now named Studio 2. We're sitting in Studio 1 of our complex here this afternoon, and joining us also with Bernie is our friend Bobby G.
How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Just having to drop by today, huh?
Yes.
You picked a good day, Jeff.
Yeah, walked in, they said, you want to host something? You started here when?
About the same time as Bernie, actually.
Yep.
I was here a little bit before then and did AM like Bernie and then moved over to the FM side. Once kids graduated, the FM slots became open. And if you weren't totally spastic, if you could talk and push buttons at the same time, we do now. But then if you could spin records and push buttons for the cart machines, which looked like 8 tracks, you'd be all set.
You would.
And Bill Moser, who was our chief engineer, had all this great stuff that he brought us from WABC when they got tired of it, including, the equipment that they decided they were going to upgrade to. So we got a chance to work with some of the new things that made this a very attractive place to go to as a college and learn about radio and communications. I worked at some of these stations early back in the day, and when I tell them, your equipment is horrible compared to what I had at the college radio station, they'd look at me. We had much better equipment here than we had at some of the local FM outlets like WLAR, for example.
We have a guest calling in on the phone,
I'll be quiet.
No, that's all right. Stay right there.
Stay right
but
here.
we'll just say hi to Jane Bletcher calling on the phone.
Bletcher. It's Bletcher.
Jane.
Crazy Jane, how you doing?
Lunatics are still there.
Oh, I'm so happy, Jane,
Where
to hear
are
you.
And I'm in Manhattan. I run recording studios for the Jewish Braille Institute. We record talking books for the blind.
That's right.
And handicapped. And I was there. I walked in the door of that lunatic asylum. And I think the first person I saw may have been the secretary, Jackie Rubin.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, why did I come down there? Because here I was a freshman. So we're talking 1968?
That's
Somewhere in
right.
there.
Same class as me.
Yes.
I'm up in one of those dorms, and for some reason, my AM radio was only getting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I hear who turns out to be Mike Riccio having a contest.
Uh-oh.
Begging somebody to call in. He's going to give away a 45 RPM. Oh, my God. So and he's begging. It's like going on for 10, 15 minutes. Please, even if it's only one listener, please call in. So I called in. I won the record, which was, I have no idea. It may have been, one of those joke records like Monster Mash or Beep Beep or something like that. And I wound up going down there, and we became the crazed ones. We were the ones who got Steve Post in there.
God help us, right.
We were the people who actually, not only in the sit-in, we adopted a dog.
That's right.
And we adopted Mr. Diddle.
That's right.
For Rick Cashman, yeah. This was, and Bill Moser says the place was a pigsty after the sit-in. It was more than a pigsty. It was a free love-in, okay? We never went on the air, but boy, did we have a good time down there.
Janie, do you remember doing the fake commercials for me on FM? We did something similar to what Saturday Night Live did many years later.
Willis gave me the copy. Brought to you by Mrs. Briggs Fur-lined elevator shaft. Chocolate cookies with wet stuff in the middle, and the makers of aluminum screens. Now, do any of you remember the original jingle from WCWP?
Sing it along because I don't have a copy.
Okay, well, you've got four people who've obviously been dead for about 5 years, four men, and they were like the high-lows or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you hear this, WCWP, Action Radio, leave it right here on the big 88. That was an actual jingle, okay? How are you not hanging your heads in shame?
We need a copy of it.
So
It's in there,
this
and
is
I got
not,
news for you. Mike Riccio has it.
This is not it, huh?
WCWP.
Much too good. Much too
What
good.
was that, Pam's? What was that, a Pam's jingle?
That's a high quality one.
That's, no, Riccio's got it. Riccio has every record that ever
Was made.
was made.
Only
and
about
who will-
25,000 copies of each.
That's right. And who will ever forget the magical interviews of Danny Frank?
Oh. Danny hired me actually as he was program director, and I eventually became program director. And he was an interesting character, to say the least.
Little Evie hired me. I auditioned for
Evie.
her.
Evie Vogel.
Evie, right. And she told me I had a flat A. And if she hadn't been so short, I would have smacked her. Because I happened to have had a grade A at the time. But, oh, my God, with Kent Moston.
Kent Moston.
Mm-hmm. He went on to become a lawyer, Kent.
Kent Moston is a big macher.
He is.
He's what is he? Nassau County head of Nassau County Legal Aid or something?
Something like that. I know that he went on to be very successful.
Unbelievable, wonderful, wonderful guy. And I will tell you something funny that Mel Rosen used to say of us. I was about 5'10.5", and I weighed about 100 pounds. Uncle Mel was 6'7", had hair down to his shoulders. He was going to be a hippie. He was trying. He was a hippie wannabe. And he weighed about 135 pounds. And Kent Moston was about 5'4", and at the time weighed probably close to a Buick.
Right.
You know, in first tonnage. And we would walk across the campus, and as Mel said, we were so secure, the three of us, because we were convinced that everybody was looking at the other two.
Well, Mel and Moston were like, Abbott and Costello, really,
Oh, they were. Oh, my God. What was Kent Moston's show? He did the Sunday show.
Mm-hmm. Generic Sunday show.
That's right. And I got in trouble because I filled in for him once.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sunday show opened with somebody. The show was the Power Line, which was a Christian religious show. So I came on to do Moston's show, and I opened with, and now the Torah line. And I hit the Weavers going, say no, say no, say no, say no, 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 no. It was hilarious. I got in so much trouble. McConaughey called me up and yelled at me.
I want to recollect one thing here. We had Mel one time, and we were stiffed by a guest.
Right.
And we did a tour of the radio station with
God.
a live mic. Do you remember this? And we walked and we flushed the toilets and we did all kinds of crazy
pencil
things.
sharpener.
And we locked him outside of the station and you could hear him at the end of the tour banging on the door.
Screaming at the
5 degrees outside. Pleading on the air to let him back in. And
That's
you hear
right.
him knocking on the door.
That's right. He had the live mic
but,
outside the door.
And he was banging on the door, begging us to let him in. But, of course, we didn't.
No,
And we gave him, but he did give a walking tour of the transmitter tower.
Right,
I remember
right,
that.
Right. Well, we used to have the kids do that. They had to, see the water and then report at what level they were on the rung, and then we sign off on them.
And the tower lights, remember? Bill would look up and say, those tower lights out again. Right. We got to send somebody
That's
up.
Right.
And fix. Of course, there were no tower lights.
That's right.
Exactly.
No
That's
airplane can fly that
That's
low.
right. No, no airplane can fly that low is what's being said.
Because Steve Post said we were only 100 watts.
That's right.
So we broadcast to the Sharks in Long Island Sound.
That's right. Something was fishy about that whole deal.
Something
right.
was.
Thank you, Jane. This was great having you on with us.
Thank you, kids. I am so enjoying listening
in. A big backup
in.
of guests here, so we're going to say adios.
Wonderful.
Is that okay? Thanks for
Happy
calling in.
Happy 50th, WCWP.
Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay,
bye-bye.
You're listening to our special 50th anniversary celebration today, March 16th, here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
It is the 50th anniversary of this station, and the actual moment was 21 minutes ago. And we still have quite a gathering here in the studio. I want to say hi to another one of our alumni that are gathered. Alan Seltzer joins us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you, too. Now, your first year here was?
1976. July 1st, 1976. I did the 1-minute newscast during the afternoon, going into what was then Maximum Music.
Uh-huh. Oh, Maximum Music. We had
you,
news.
You remember that?
We had news on during the.
Well, you had us talk
in the afternoons.
Record. Yeah,
in the afternoons we did. Right,
not on
by
shows.
Weekends we had stopped. At one point we had news on weekends, but that ended a long time before. So we still had it on weekdays. Yes, we did.
But
yes, we did at 5 and 6 o'clock. Yeah.
This is absolutely wonderful. I mean, aside from being the 50th anniversary, it's one of the rare times when I look in a room of alumni. And up until the time Pete Bellotti walked in the room, I'm the youngest guy in the room. And I don't remember the last time that's happened anyplace.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Pat is raising her hand.
That's right.
Well, I'll double check your birth date.
But welcome aboard. Now, Alan is still very active here at WCWP. He has not one, because one would be, anybody can just do a show. So slacker. Alan does 2 shows here at 88.1.
Well, we have the Groove Yard, which is where oldies come alive, Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. And it's the best of pre-British invasion music. And we felt that there was a need, because a lot of the radio stations were starting to ignore the post-British invasion music. So we started the Saturday Soiree, which is Saturdays from 7 to 10. We do the soiree survey. We have features about different artists. And we have a number of hosts for that show. It's not just myself, but, for example, Bernie Bernard is doing this weekend. Bobby G has done several weeks. Chris McIntosh, Scott Persky. We have a great lineup of hosts.
And that's Saturdays from 7 until 10. That's 3 hour.
Yes,
and
that's
the
a 3 hour
Graveyard
show.
is 2 hours.
7 to 9, 9 to 11 on Thursdays.
Thursdays following the rock show.
We're not doing 7 to 9 yet, but we'll talk about that. I'm sorry, Bernie.
Oh man! I think we're getting pushed out for. Oh my goodness, Hank.
I just want to. This is great talking about all this stuff, but Jeff, you sent me a scanned article from the Post Pioneer.
Yes.
Written by Dean Thomas. So
okay. Well, I want to.
You want to get to that later?
I'll tell you what. No, I want to do that, but we're going to take a very quick call. And then
great.
we're going to do that. I will talk about everything that was in the Pioneer that week. All right. So let's bring up our call. I'll tell you what. We'll let him introduce himself. Hello, mystery caller.
Mystery caller. Would that be me?
Yeah, that would be
you.
Mystery. Yeah. Hi, Mr.
Uncle
Mystery.
Jeffy, it's Joel Feltman.
Joel Feltman, live from Florida, on the phone here this afternoon at WCWP. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I've been trying to listen to you guys. The stream is not that good, so every few seconds it kind of buffers.
Now, wait a minute. Whoa. Now, wait a minute. You just insulted the director of broadcasting, who happens to be standing right here. So.
Well, I'm 1,200 miles away, so...
Dan now is slinking off into the distance. Glad you could call in.
Tell me to get better internet service.
Get better internet. So, whoa, okay.
The second time in the history of the station that we're going to be pulled off the air.
Joel, tell folks, what year did you start here at WCWP?
I actually came as a transfer student in 1972
from a school that actually went out of business, which is really unbelievable.
Correct.
You never hear about that. A college that actually went out of business.
That's correct.
Belly up.
Yes, a small school up in central New York State who went funked 3 weeks before I graduated from Post, and of course my good friend comes up to me one day with a rip from the UPI Newswire saying that this particular school had decided to close its doors, and of course in his inimitable manner suggested that I'm not going to be able to graduate because all the credits that were transferred were now defunct because the school was out of business. And of course I ran right to the registrar to make sure that was not true, because for those 10 or 15 minutes I thought I would have to start all over again.
All right, so tell folks, so now you come here to Post. What was your major when you were here at...
My major was political science, okay?
And how does that help? How does that help you in what you do today?
Not at all. But then again, that was, 1972, and I want to relate for you my first exposure to the station.
Yes.
I was a political science major. I had an interest in radio and broadcasting and communications, so I signed up for our good friend Harry Lowenthal's Introduction to Broadcast Engineering class, and where Harry was teaching students to operate the board.
Harry is standing here smiling as you say that.
I said, well, I got something else. So anyway, after class, I walked up to Harry and said, I'm really interested. I'd like to get involved. Who do I talk to? And Harry said to me that I need to reach out and speak to a guy by the name of Joe Heinekamp. Okay? What Heinekamp? I said, okay, fine. I'll find Joe Heinekamp, and I'll see if I can reach out to him. So I left a message in the general mailbox in there for Joe Heinekamp. I never got a response. And
all right, wait a minute. Wait. He's going to give you that response right now.
Mr. Feldman.
Okay. Just 45 years too late.
Mr. Feldman, you have to be dealt with later. So come on up here and we'll go out in the backyard and straighten all this out. What do you think?
I love that idea. So anyway, where I finally found Joe Heinekamp, okay, was in my legislative process class with Dr. Carl Figliola. Joe, I assume you remember Dr. Figliola.
Couldn't
and
forget him.
I happen to remember... I'm sorry?
I couldn't forget him, and I couldn't snow him either.
There you go. And he happened to call someone in class by the name of Joe Hunter came. And I turned around to see Joseph answer the question, and sure enough, right after class, I ran up to him, accosted this gentleman, and said, okay, who do I have to kill to get into the radio station? And Joe said, show up some night at 7 o'clock, and I did, and he was right there, and he said, okay, you're going to run the board for a while, which was take shifts. And I said, okay, because I had learned in Harry's class, so that was my first introduction to WCWP 43 years ago.
And Joel still comes back, joins us for homecomings in the fall. We look forward to that. Joel, thanks a lot for persevering. I know it's tough getting through on the phones. We've had a lot of calls here today. Thanks for checking in with us.
Thank you, Jeff. Congratulations to all of us at WCWP for 50 great years, and let's look forward to the next 50.
WCWP.
That's Joel Feltman here at 88.1 FM. A quick hi. We have Pete Bellotti, one of our alums, has joined us. Now, Pete does not go back to the 60s or the 70s or anything like that.
2 years later.
Yeah, go ahead. What year did you start here?
I started September 2003.
See, so he's just a kid. He's just a
baby.
Kid. He's, yeah. Pete, what are we going to do? We lost a pitcher today, Pete.
It's a good thing we didn't trade Dylan G.
I know. We're lamenting. We're lamenting. Zach Wheeler of the Mets, if you haven't heard, elbow torn UCL. He'll be undergoing Tommy John surgery, as it seems every pitcher does in Major League Baseball. And the Mets are down one of their key guys.
The slogan this year should be "Lamenters here."
Oh, boy.
Every year, it's always a problem.
It's unbelievable. But anyway, let's get back to WCWP.
Sure,
and a happier thing, it's the 50th anniversary of the radio station. And welcome. I'm glad you stopped by today.
I'm glad to be here. It's just the one thing I was, listening, driving in, and it's a lot of things that we can all relate on from many years of people that have come through the doors is the people and the camaraderie between everybody and just the relationships that everyone has grown out of this station, and it's just something remarkable.
Yeah, so you're close with your group from the 2000s, just as the guys from the 60s and 70s have been telling us, regaling us with these wonderful stories. So.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's incredible. Just the relationships you have after you leave here. There's no words to describe.
Very good. Well, Pete, thanks for taking the time and coming up here today.
Thank
and
you.
Being a part, you're now part of history, the 50th anniversary.
Glad to be part of it.
You stand a better chance of being here for the 100th than a lot of the rest of us, I can tell you that. Thanks for stopping by, Pete. And I want to get back now to Hank Niemark. Hank had brought up just before the call started the Post Pioneer is the weekly paper that is produced here on the campus and has been, I guess, going back to the beginning of time here.
1954.
Right? 54, they started publishing.
Yeah, so that would be the 61st anniversary.
Yeah, so last week, my wife Pat and I, we took the time to go up to the archives, which it's an office up in the library building. And they have every copy of the Post Pioneer. So we went back to the edition of March 16th, 1965. It's actually dated the 19th. They dated it on Fridays in those days. So we took out the edition on the 19th. I was very excited. Okay. Oh, here it is. And we're going to see all the big things that are happening on the campus. This is the wild swinging 60s. Boy, oh boy, there's got to be something great going on. There's probably an anti-war protest here and a march about that there. Oh, this is going to be great. And we open it up. Nothing. It was the most boring week. The biggest story in there was that they had approved the plans for the library building here on the campus, the one that all of us know so well over there. It wasn't there at the time in 1965. The plans were approved, and it would be built over the next 18 months, so I guess it opened sometime in the beginning of 1967 at that point. So that was the biggest thing, and then there was a big article in there about the station signing on March 16th. And another thing that Hank had brought up, do you have that copy, or would you like? You're going to read it. Go ahead, say what you want, but then read this.
I don't know. They still have the key. When we started here, there was a pamphlet that all students got called the Key. Do they still have that? It was basically how to behave, And let me say this about the 60s. The 60s did not take place until the 70s. And that's really true. Seriously, that's when we think about it, it goes back there. But, we were still, here's an example.
This is from the Post Pioneer of March 19th, 1965.
From the desk of Dean Thomas. Basically, she goes on to say about how we the college is beautiful and has a wonderful location, and as a reflection of that, the students should think of themselves the way, keep themselves really, well groomed and so forth. And it talks about all this stuff and how to go. But here's the thing that really got me. There's a thing in boldface. It said, your dress for the business of classroom, library, dining hall, and academic appointments calls for skirts. Women look most feminine in their skirts with sweaters, blouses, and in warm weather, their pretty pastel dresses. Example is set at social functions on our campus, which we expect our women students to observe and thereby learn about correct dress and conduct. This is part of your education. And, folks, it's 50 years ago. If I had read this 50 years ago, I'd say, yeah, they should wear more skirts around here.
I said that to you. Hey, I got a big kick out of seeing that in the paper that day, and that shows you what kind of week it was at Post. That was the most interesting thing going on that week here on the campus was that letter. There were also some letters to the editor. There was one that was I mentioned it a little earlier. I mean, it's a while ago, unless you were tuned in from the beginning, that there was some rumblings on the campus that the money spent here was it really for a good cause to build this station? And there was a powerful answer back.
Michael Cosman is the guy who wrote the answer to that. Michael Cosman was really instrumental in setting up the station early. He became a very close friend of mine. Michael lives in Morgantown, Pennsylvania right now, and unfortunately he couldn't travel. But in answer to a letter from a Mr. Alan Gray, and I remember the letter. It's not printed here, but the letter about, this is a waste of money.
Well, it's probably from the previous issue. I probably should have gotten that week out. Right.
That's
That's all right. That's
all right.
The gist of it is here.
The gentleman, who I remember, as a matter of fact, Alan Gray, is basically saying, college. We have no... why are we doing a radio station? Why are we spending money on a radio station? Which, by the way, as I said before, came out to about $130,000, which in 2015 dollars is $980,000. Okay, so almost $1 million there for that. And Michael answers. In his letter to the editor published in the March 5th edition of The Pioneer, Mr. Alan Gray posed some interesting but unfounded questions about the new radio station. He asks if the station will be, quote, doing the greatest amount of people the most good, unquote. Michael says, of course it will. This is one of the basic principles of educational broadcasting. Now, don't forget, it was not public broadcasting in those days. It was educational, guaranteed to snore most people out. Who would want to listen to an educational radio? A television station, for that matter. This is one of the basic principles of educational broadcasting. Alan asks, do the results justify the expense? They most certainly do. Also, the station received as a grant from LAU $30,000. The station is valued at $130,000. The remaining $100,000 being product of private contributors. I'm not sure now that I'm reading this letter that he's actually answering the questions. As mentioned by Mr. Gray on information from some most reliable sources, there is indeed some very sophisticated equipment. A radio station needs good equipment. So I guess Alan Gray, said, can they, get by with a...
it's like too modern, too fancy, right? Could they, right? But some rusted out old stuff from the 20s, some Marconi's originals or something, and it would have been enough.
But this is a great paragraph here. How can we? This is Alan Gray says, how can we crack the highly competitive commercial market? Michael answers, this question is probably the easiest to answer. We are not in the commercial market. Boom, and that's it.
That's right. Non-commercial educational station still to this day. It's at that part of the dial, actually. If you're south of 92 on the FM dial, you're supposed to be a non-commercial educational station. Thank you for reading that, Hank. Those were the interesting things that were in the Pioneer 50 years ago, and we're here celebrating the 50th anniversary radio station. I want to get Bernie's comments about that letter from the dean about the dress. Now, as a female, now, all right, so you weren't here in 65, but you come in 68.
In
How
68,
would you have...
they wanted people who lived on campus. Of course, they couldn't tell commuters how to dress, but they wanted people, women on campus who lived in the dorms to dress a little bit. If you're going to classes, look neat, look I don't know, within a year after that, everybody was in jeans and sneakers and sandals and T-shirts and all that. But there were a lot of changes. The one thing that really helped change is, of course, I was here from 68 to 72. A lot of protests, a lot of things going on. The one thing that I like to regale my students with this story, there were curfews where all the men's dorms were on the quad. Kings, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk were all male dorms. Post and Riggs were female dorms. The women had curfews, but the men didn't. And, of course, I would have to get a dispensation from Mr. McConaughey, who was the director of broadcasting, to take to the dorm when I was here late for meetings or shows. Wow. I had to have a note to give to the dorm, the people at the dorm, to say I was working late. But the women decided, of course, it was in the year of protests, that, we don't want to do this anymore. How come we have curfews and the guys don't? They're, we have to protect the women on campus. So one day, all of the women emptied out of Riggs and Post Hall and slept on the traffic circle in front of the dorms. We did that for, I'd say, 3 nights or so, out there with pillows and blankets, and the guys certainly got wind of it over on the other side of campus, so they came and joined us, and it was one big party going on in the traffic circle that no longer exists anymore. Well, that lasted for about 3 nights. The parents started calling and saying, why am I paying for a dorm when my daughter is sleeping out on the traffic circle? So that was it. That was a power to the people moment, and the curfews were abolished after that.
There you go. That's it. Students taking it to the streets.
It was
or
great.
Or the circle, whatever.
This underscores what I said. The 60s didn't happen until the 70s.
That's it.
Well,
now, my wife...
68, 69, actually. So
that's
late
the
60s. Yeah.
My wife, Pat's here. She wanted to know what about the men's dress code? Was there a men's dress code? I think skirts also. I believe that was it.
We had there was no stated dress code, but in those days it was collegiate to wear a tie often and a blazer with the elbow patches, that kind of thing.
So shorts and sandals on a hot day in September would probably not fly back then.
I don't think they invented sandals at that time,
and
right?
Shorts or cut-off jeans in those days?
We wore Bermuda shorts in Bleeding Madras. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, so there were shorts. And I remember women wearing shorts and sweatshirts. But it wasn't common. But most of the time, you would come to school with a blazer and a tie.
Oh, boy. Well,
we're laughing here.
We're laughing. Go ahead. Describe this, Bernie. We can't show it because this is radio, but...
Bill Moser has a box of original Post Toasties. And, of course, Post was founded by C.W. Post, the cereal magnate. And Post Toasties were named... I hear it was developed because he had a stomach problem and he needed something that was easily digestible. So they came up with these corn flakes called Post Toasties, and Bill actually is holding a box that's, I think, from Dan's office, the classic Post Toasties, right here.
And they're probably stale, I would think, at this point. No? Did they have an expiration date on them?
Yeah, 1978, I think.
Expiration date, and there's no corn in it.
And yet it says corn.
There's corn.
It says
corn
cornflakes.
I'm just kidding.
All right. We are celebrating the 50th anniversary of WCWP Radio, which actually occurred at 4 o'clock, and we've been on just reminiscing about the station with some great memories. So many people have stopped by today. It's really a kick. It's funny, from the emails and texts I got, I thought we were getting more calls than guests in the studio, and as it turned out, we have lots of guests in the studio, and not quite as many calls yet.
John Libretto, are you there? If you're listening, John, call in, or maybe you're on the wrong time zone or something.
Yeah, because we'd love to hear from you. He's down in the Dallas area.
He's in Allen, Texas.
Yeah, so maybe he's on Central Time down there where it's still only about 4:45, so instead of 4:45. But the station turned 50 years old about almost 43 minutes ago. As we embark on the next 50 years, and if the next 50 years are as successful as the first 50, that'd be pretty good for this place. Turned out a lot of people who who got into the broadcasting ranks. Bernie, I'd want Bernie to talk about, from your student days, then you went on to a terrific career, and that is definitely something that should be mentioned here today.
Well, before that, I wanted to mention that there are a few people here, Bobby G., Mike Riccio, they actually were working in the business as students here. And we thought that was pretty cool. Bobby interviewed Jimi Hendrix. He was on WLIR. Mike was at LIX before BLI. And there were several people who were working here when they were seniors. Ted David, a couple other folks. So that was pretty impressive to me that we were ready to, get out there before we even graduated. While some people were seniors, it was terrific. And I have to thank Elliot Goshman, one of our fellow alumni, for getting me my job at WBAB. I went right from here to BAB. Elliot said, hey, I'm going to leave. Get a demo, of course, a tape, get a demo and a resume over here right now. And I'm going to give my notice tomorrow, and you can probably get my job. And I did. It worked out. And then from there, you're mentioning Scott Muni on the old WOR. Scott hired me at WNEW-FM after BAB. That was late 79, early 80. From there, I went on to work at the Voice of America in D.C. for 21 years. Wow. And now I'm back here teaching. I do some voiceover work. I get on and do the rock show a few times a month. And it's all good. It's fun. This place is just so special and so home. And a lot of these folks are my lifelong friends. And it is so great to be here in this company.
That's great. I'm so glad you're here today. Of course, you had no choice. You had a class earlier. So, I mean, what else were you going to do? We were right next door. So you had to kind of bounce in here. We have, you will actually be hearing from Mike Riccio and Bobby G. that Bernie was just mentioning. They did a wonderful thing for us. They recorded the top 10 hits of this date in 1965. And we have that. We're going to go to that at some point here. We have too many guests to get in right now. But you will hear that before we wind things up today. The top 10 hits on this exact date 50 years ago. It's a heck of a list. I was here when they did that, and it's a very impressive list of songs. So we will do that. We have someone who wanted to be here today but couldn't be and wasn't able to call in. Our friend John Cummins sent this along.
Hi, this is John Cummins, graduating class of 1973. I really do wish that I could be with you there to help celebrate. I transferred to Post from Nassau Community College, and I attended New Student Orientation in August 1971. I walked into WCWP, and I never left. My life was changed. There was Bruce Leonard on the air, and I was hooked. I spoke to both Bruce and to Bill Moser, and Moser told me how I needed to get my license in order to work at the station. Amazing what getting a third phone ticket will bring. I'm so grateful for the training and for the many good friends in that amazing building. It enabled me to spend over 30 years professionally behind the mic. Thank you, WCWP, and God bless you.
You're listening to our special 50th anniversary celebration today, March 16th, here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
Well, that was John Cummins. Always a pleasure to hear from John, now down in Georgia these days, but couldn't be with us or get a chance to call in today, so he was kind enough to send that up. Bill Moser joins me again here. Welcome back, Mr. Moser. We've had so many guests. We were talking earlier today. We have actually, just to let everybody know, there's actually a newscast from the year 2015, not from 1965, coming up in 8 minutes. So we will head for that. And then we'll be back after that. We're going to have that music countdown I was just talking about and a few other guests along the way. So we're going to stay with you past the original 5 o'clock sign-off time because what the heck? We just came back, took over the radio station like we like to do. Why not? Bill joined in, you said you first came in here just a couple of months after the station was on the air and then became director of broadcasting in 1970, thereafter the major shutdown. And for 20 years, this place was quite a place. You helped turn out so many people got into broadcasting, but all angles of broad, not just, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, all kinds of stuff. Helped create that atmosphere that just lent it to, and things that were said earlier today by Hank, that it was a student-run station. We basically ran the place, under some guidance, but the students, you always let the students go with a bit of a leash, but the students ran the place.
Well, I always felt that I would give smart people the opportunity to do what they wanted to do and grow. And again, people will say, well, we credit this and that with, our success based. The only credit I take is just creating an atmosphere where smart and bright people were able to learn and grow.
Well, we did, and I had the great fortune of my timing here was pretty good. Not to make this about me, but I walked in the fall of 1971, and it was shortly after, just a few months after you'd been back on the air from the shutdown that was mentioned earlier, and it was great timing because it was just desperate for people. So if you found a live one, it was, hey, great. He can walk and talk. He can get on the radio. And Frank D'Elia put me on doing newscasts. Literally, the first night I walked in, I did a 1-minute update. And by the next week, a week later, I was doing 10-minute newscasts on football games 3 times on a Saturday. That's quite a growth spurt there in a week's time. So that's the way we kind of force-fed, if you were willing to work at it. But it was great. And then you had students training students. We would all train the next group to come along, and it was just a great place to learn. And the station, thanks to your tutelage, had a wonderful reputation in the professional ranks. When you walked into a place, I'm engineering the news. Okay, well, that's news to me, as they say. When you walked into a professional station, oh, you're from WCWP. Oh, wow, man, that was the way it was. So you are to be, commended all these years later for that. You're going to find what I'm supposed to play, Bobby?
I'm going to try to.
Yeah, there has to be an opening under news there. And I'll give you one specific example. My first professional job was at WHN as a summer relief engineer, and I actually worked with Joe Hunterkamp up there. There were so many people there from WCWP. Frank D'Elia was there at the time. Joe, you were there. Was Bill Epperhart working there then, or was that might have been just after that? But there were several people connected. So it was pretty much Pappy Durkin, the chief over there, would say, "Well, I need another guy. Who's next in the pipeline?" And okay, you're from Post, and they could trust you. You come in and you could do the job, and that's all because of what you learned here.
Well, thank you.
So that was.
While I was driving up, I was listening to Ted, and Ted is a dear friend. But all the things he said about me, I guess I'm going to have to write him a check. He's down in Florida these days, but it really is very sweet to hear all these nice things.
Well, we asked him if he wanted to wait. He got on the line, and the first thing we asked him, he just wanted to wait a few minutes until you were here. But, Ted, he's like a thoroughbred in the starting gate. Yeah. No, he's ready to go, so we got him on. So.
All right. What am I doing here? Oh, I'm signing on the air.
You're signing on the air. All right. Well, we have to get ready for the news. The news will be coming up here in about 3 minutes. And then after that, we will be back. We have more for you here on this Monday afternoon, March the 16th, 2015. The significance of the date, if you tuned in along the way, is that 50 years ago today, this station, 88.1 FM, WCWP, signed on the air for the first time. It actually happened at 4 p.m. that day. We had a commemoration of the great moment about 52 minutes ago with Hank Niemark, and we will continue. We still have a few things to do here before we sign off on this Monday afternoon, but it's been a great pleasure to be back here and carry on with you. I have a few things here as we head towards the news, which is less than 3 minutes away. Just wanted to give you an idea of how life has changed since 1965. The New York City subway and bus fare in 1965 was still 15 cents. And today it's $2.50. It's actually going up, if you're not aware. It's going up to $2.75 next Sunday for a single ride. That's not the Metro card price, but that's for a single ride. So it's gone from 15 cents. If you used the inflation rate, it should be $1.11 today. 15 cents would be $1.11. So $2.75. Now here's one that's actually not too far off. A gallon of gas was 31 cents a gallon. That was the average in 1965. And well, it's been going up slightly of late after the big drop. With inflation, the 31 cent price would be $2.30 a gallon today. That's not far off. It's pretty much just above that right now. What was another one that I found of interest? I had a few here. Just as a remembrance, the governor of New York was Nelson Rockefeller then. The mayor was still Robert Wagner in 1965, and the executive of Nassau County was Eugene Nickerson back in those days. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on March 16th, 1965, closed at 898.90. And, of course, now it's well up in the 17,000s, and occasionally it gets into the 18,000s. The S&P 500 that day closed at 87.13. The other day it closed at 2,053, so slight difference there. The federal budget in 1965, the total spending was $118 billion with a B dollars, which in today's dollars would be $877 billion, but our budget last year was $3.5 trillion. So it has gone up considerably since then. And the federal debt, well, it's always a cause of some political concern. It was $322 billion with a B back then, and it's now over $17 trillion. Always something that's bandied about. Just another quick one here. The bridge and tunnel tolls, the bridges like the Whitestone Bridge, the Throgs Neck Bridge and such were 25 cents each way, and now it's $8. So that's quite a difference. Even that 25 cent with inflation would be $1.85. We'll have more of this coming up in just a moment or two. But first, we're going to pause for this. We have the news from 2015 coming up here at 88.1 FM, WCWP, Brookville, New York.
This is WCWP News.
This is your WCWP Evening Newscast. I'm Stephanie Rule.
I'm Aliza Gulab.
And I'm Caitlin Gambino. An armed robber strikes again, this time at a gas station in Hicksville. Nassau County Police now say that the individual responsible could be linked to almost a dozen other service station robberies that have been taking place since December. Surveillance video shows the suspect, who is described as an African-American male, 6 feet tall, with a slim build. He wore a dark hoodie and a black bandana covering his face. Police ask anyone with information about the suspect to call Crime Stoppers at 800-244-TIPS. Calls are confidential.
A strong form of heroin being sold in Camden, New Jersey led to more than a dozen overdoses in less than 24 hours. Police and emergency responders are worried that there may be more overdoses to come. Heroin at its purest form is being sold in Camden, causing 15 overdoses in several surrounding towns since Tuesday. Police are stepping up patrols and have placed Cooper University Hospital on alert.
Relief teams to continue to look through the wreckage as a Category 5 storm tore through the island of Vanuatu Friday and Saturday. The 185-mile-per-hour winds ripped through the small island, killing at least 6 people and completely destroying various hut-like communities. Aid workers are describing the area as a complete disaster due to Cyclone Plant. UNICEF says that 60,000 children have been affected and are in urgent need of assistance. On Saturday, a tugboat captain, Donald Maloney, formerly of Long Island, died when the boat sank in icy and stormy waters about a mile off Fire Island. 3 crew members were rescued, and one of them managed to make a cell phone call to the Coast Guard around 2 p.m. while the boat was sinking. Immediately, 3 Coast Guard boats, a helicopter, and 2 other tugboats began to search for the 4th crew member. Around 5 p.m., Donald's body was found, and police realized he was unable to put on an immersion suit as the boat was sinking.
An arrest has been made in connection with the shooting of 2 police officers in Ferguson, Missouri. Jeffrey Williams was charged with 2 counts of assault in the first degree and 1 count of firing a weapon from a vehicle. The 20-year-old is being held on $300,000 bond. If convicted of the charges, Williams could face up to life in prison. St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Robert McCulloch says Williams admitted to firing the shots that hit 2 police officers.
A man has been arrested in New Orleans in connection with the California murder of Susan Berman in 2000. Robert Durst, a New York real estate heir and subject of the HBO documentary The Jinx, was arrested on a warrant in a homicide investigation. In today's court hearing, Durst agreed to go to Los Angeles to face first-degree murder charges. Durst has been suspected of 3 killings, including the disappearance of his wife, but he has never been convicted. Now here's Connor Vogt with sports.
The New York Knicks fell to the Phoenix Suns last night, 102-89. The Knicks have an NBA worst 13-53 overall record and only 4 wins on the road this season. The Suns' point guard Eric Bledsoe was just 1 rebound short of a triple-double in last night's game. He finished with 21 points and 11 assists. The Knicks are off tonight but are back in action tomorrow when they take on the San Antonio Spurs. The Brooklyn Nets return to action tonight to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. This will be the first time the Nets face former teammate Kevin Garnett since they traded him earlier this season. The Timberwolves are currently on a 4-game losing streak and have only won 2 out of their last 10 games. The opening tip is scheduled for an 8 o'clock start. The March Madness tournament brackets were announced yesterday. Kentucky, Villanova, Duke, and Wisconsin all earned top seeds in their regions. Kentucky is the early favorite to win the national championship after going undefeated all season, but it's March Madness, anything can happen. Sliding it over to hockey, the New York Rangers continued their strong play last night when they defeated the Florida Panthers 2-1. Cam Talbot made 38 saves in front of the sold-out crowd. The Rangers have 2 nights off but return to the ice on Wednesday when they face off against Chicago. Now, back to Stephanie.
In honor of Dairy Queen's 75th anniversary, participating Dairy Queen's locations will be giving away free cones. The one-day offer is limited to 1 small vanilla soft-serve cone per customer. The restaurant, in honor of their anniversary, will be raising money for Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, a charity that provides support for children's hospitals nationwide. For WCWP News, I'm Stephanie Rule.
I'm Caitlin Gambino. I'm Eliza Gulab.
And I'm Connor Vogt. Now back to the music on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
50 years ago today, on March 16th, 1965, 88.1 FM WCWP signed on the air for the first time. Welcome to this special broadcast marking this milestone here on 88.1 FM WCWP, Brookville, New York.
And welcome back to our coverage. There you go. No, those were the current students. Here we are celebrating 50th anniversary of the station. Those were part of the current staff here at WCWP with your updated news and sports and what have you right here at WCWP Radio.
50 years ago today, on March 16th, 1965, 88.1 FM WCWP signed on the air for the first time. Welcome to this special broadcast marking this milestone here on 88.1 FM WCWP, Brookville, New York.
Yes, indeed. It has been a very special afternoon here at 88.1 FM WCWP and online at WCWP.org. That's something that has clearly changed in the last 50 years, right? And we want to wish a very happy, a fond goodbye to our friend Hank Niemark, who was, it's great to see you today, Hank.
Great to have been here. I just want to say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah.
It was a thrill, an honor, a privilege to be here.
Ours.
To be that voice again at 4 o'clock. Seriously. Very, very important to me. As I've said, and I just talked to the reporter from Pioneer, I have a very proprietary feeling about this place. It's like it's my place. Whether you see it that way or not, I own this place, and I'm lending it in perpetuity to all of you through the... I never expect to live here again, but it is mine. Goodbye, everybody. Happy 50th WCWP. Can I do one more 1965?
Yes, you go right ahead. Go
station
ahead.
break?
Do it.
First on your FM dial at 88.1, this is the voice of CW Post College, WCWP in Brookville,
New York.
WCWP. Hank Niemark, ladies and gentlemen, the first voice heard on this station 50 years ago today, and a member of the WCWP Hall of Fame, one of the founding members of the WCWP Hall of Fame. We have another Hall of Famer here. Bill Moser joins us. He's still here. He's in the Hall of Fame. Harry Lowenthal is in the WCWP Hall of Fame. He's here. Bobby G is across from me. He's about to be in the WCWP Hall. Well, actually, you are. The only thing that they just haven't had the induction. And I'm proud to say that we're going in together in next month. But I guess we're Bruce Leonard, who called in earlier today, and Mike Riccio. And Mike left.
Mike had to go.
Mike had to go, but he's here. You just heard him on that top 10, and you'll hear the rest of that top 10 coming up next hour. It's just a pleasure to be with everyone today on this special day. I'm really glad Hank was here, and we were able to get some other folks from that era to stop by today and call in. It's been a lot of fun. We remember 50 years ago. It's staggering. 50 years ago today, this station went on the air, WCWP, and we're still at it. They're still at it.
Still here.
It's still here.
Can't get rid of us.
No.
It's like the Hotel California.
That's right. Hotel California is Bernie.
That's right. Oh, Bernie Bernard came back in, and Bernie is also a member of the WCWP Hall of Fame. We have the Hall of Fame well covered today.
Got all
that's
bases
that's
covered.
very
bases
good. You know,
loaded.
I've been wanting to play this all day.
Okay, go ahead.
Bernie Bernard.
I love that jingle. You gotta get that one in. That's my favorite. We have we have a phone call? We do have a phone call. Oh, hang on a sec. All right, go ahead. I have it so we can do it. Hello, phone caller. Please enter and sign in, please.
Speaking of Hall of Fame members...
here's another one. Ted David on the phone with us.
The only reason I'm calling back is not to hog airtime.
The first repeat caller from... And that's how we know we've been on the air too long. We're getting repeat callers.
In the words of Bob Gray, get off my phone! You had mentioned earlier Moser, and then Bill had mentioned me, but you said I didn't want to hang around. I wanted to...
he's right here. He's hearing every word you say.
I wanted to French kiss Bill on the air directly and let everyone know within the sound of our voice, all 35 or 40 yards of it, that he and I are lovers and we are about to come out.
I find this hard to believe, Ted.
Debbie and Jane are beards.
You know, there's a picture that Ted and I took together outside the studio here one day. I think it was on homecoming, right? And I have my shirt, what do you call it, tail out my zipper, and I'm smiling and he's smiling. And I don't think Ted actually saw that until after it was published, but it was just...
Thank you for that, Ted. There are others which are even more, but I mean, you know, one of the things I noticed on our homecoming, and by the way, just shut me up the minute you need to do something else.
No, we're doing fine.
We've got a mute button here, Ted, for that.
On our WCWP webpage, the Facebook page, Bruce Mahler has reestablished contact again. Of course, Bruce was a great friend of many of us and went on to do some great things at Police Academy 1 and 2, and I guess Saturdays, that ABC show that rivaled Saturday Night Live.
It was Fridays, right.
Fridays, thank you.
Yes.
Bill, tell the story that you always tell about how he stole my routine based on you and me and what you hooked up in the rack.
Well, we had this old Gates compressor, which made people sound like they were right in your ear. And we rigged up a tape on a reverb machine, and Ted, who is quite fluent in Spanish, we did this goof Spanish disc jockey routine. And you want to give us a little piece of that, Ted?
Yeah, it might be sort of like, hola y bienvenidos a Casa Coming Weekend de WCWP con mi amigo Bill Moser.
We had so much fun doing that, and Bruce Mahler was around, and he actually brought that routine to Fridays on ABC, which was supposed to be, I guess, going up against Saturday Night Live. It only lasted, I think, 2 seasons.
Yeah,
I couldn't play the piano upside down in an iron lung, but that was.
Larry
Well,
David
listen,
was part of that show.
I'm going to
too,
leave you
isn't
with
it?
this drop. If you're rolling, you'll have it, and if not, I have to pull back from the phone just a bit so I don't overmodulate. But here we go. 50 años de WCWP.
That's 50 for those that.
That was 50 years.
50
Well,
years.
on that note, I'll leave you to Don Francisco y Sábado Gigante. Hasta la vista. Bienvenidos y buenas noches.
Thank you very much. Ted David joining us here on our celebration of the 50th anniversary of WCWP. And what happened to that? Oh, I was going to play this thing for Ted, but...
Write it up.
Yeah, write it up.
Oh, that's a classic. That was Bill's line when I was in school. If you
Write it
needed
up.
something
Write
done,
it up.
write it up.
Oh, here's Ted. Here he is.
You're listening to our special 50th anniversary celebration today, March 16th, here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
There we go. Ted David, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the 50th anniversary. It's been a very exciting day as we counted down to 4 p.m., which was the actual time that WCWP signed on the air 50 years ago. And we'll be wrapping things up next hour here on WCWP. We have news again at 5:55, the latest news for you. I have some other information about 1965, what life was like back then, if anyone's interested. The big news story of the day that day was the previous night on the 15th. President Lyndon Johnson had made a speech before a joint session of Congress in which he actually pushed for the Voting Rights Act, which was a week after Selma. And, of course, Selma's been in the news with not just the movie, but the 50th anniversary of that, which was last week. And then the president followed that up with a request, a demand, really, for the Voting Rights Act. And that passed in short order after that. And had a good run till the Supreme Court stepped in a couple of years ago and started to eat into that. But we'll follow that along. But that was the biggest news story of March 16th, 1965. We also have coming up, I think we're getting another phone call at some point. We didn't get the call yet? Because if I go into this thing, he's going to be delayed again. That's fine. All right, we're going to go into this. Another member of our alumni group who couldn't be here today wanted to join us in some way, and my friend Neil Marks, who was a former sports director here at WCWP, did a little research and figured out what the heck was going on in the sports world on March 16th, 1965. As we continue to look back on what life was like 50 years ago today, March 16th, 1965, we're joined by another of our WCWP alums, Neil Marks. My buddy is on the phone with us. And Neil was a former sports director here at WCWP. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, I started at this radio station in 1975, which is also when we both first met.
I remember it well,
football.
yeah. Yep, remember it well. And I'm sure you want to wish a happy 50th to this place.
Absolutely. This is a pleasure and an honor to be part of the celebration of 50 years of WCWP. I know a lot of people are contributing to it, but I'm happy to throw my 2 cents in as well and to congratulate everybody who's joining, including those who started back in 1965.
And what Neil has graciously agreed to do is take us back 50 years to the sports world of March 16th, 1965. What was happening that day?
Well, in baseball, obviously springtime, the Mets getting ready for their second season at beautiful Shea Stadium in Flushing. And they lost last night to the Phillies, their third straight spring training game. Cleon Jones was 2 for 3. Ed Kranepool and Chris Cannizzaro had the other hits for the Mets, who lost 1-0. Yogi Berra didn't play, but he went 0 for 2 on Sunday as he came over from the Yankees after being manager last year.
Yeah, I don't think too many people know that Yogi actually played for the Mets. In 1965, he played in 4 games during the regular season, which obviously hadn't started yet since we're talking about March 16th. But Yogi had 9 at-bats as a Met, the only at-bats he ever had that weren't with the Yankees.
So kind of odd for them. We all know Yogi went on and became manager for the Mets, but he did play for him.
Actually a long time as coach.
Yep.
He was the coach under Gil Hodges when the Mets won the World Series in '69. So.
And then, of course, managed them to the World Series in '73.
In '73, right.
Also that year, Warren Spahn pitched for the Mets the prior Sunday on the 14th. So
anything to sell tickets, get those veterans
exactly. in. Warren might have been 50 at that point, but he was still pitching. The Yankees were in Orlando, and at the time, the reigning American League champions under brand new manager Johnny Keane, who had been the manager of the Cardinals the year before, who played the Yankees in the World Series. The Yankees won their fourth exhibition game in a row, 4-3 over the Twins. My personal favorite, Horace Clarke, had the game-winning sac fly. And what was about to become a very poor period in Yankees history. The Twins, however, were paced by Billy Martin, who hit a home run. Not many remember that Billy Martin played for the Twins.
Battling Billy.
Yep. Not playing that day for the Yankees were Mickey Mantle, Elston Howard, and Tony Kubek, all given a day off in the exhibition season. But the Yankees will be playing tomorrow night, March 17th, 1965. Whitey Ford, Al Downing, and Jim Bouton are scheduled to pitch, all pretty well known in Yankee history.
And how? And how? Oh, the names. This is great.
Yeah.
This is
Al
great.
Downing, of course, if you know your baseball history, also pitched for the Dodgers and gave up the 715th home run to Hank Aaron down in Atlanta.
Yep, so, back in 1974.
Yep. In hockey, there being only one hockey team at the time in New York, the Rangers, they were in the midst of another horrible season, 19-34, about to finish up in fifth place. They were off until Saturday night. But a bunch of basketball going on, starting with the CW Post Pioneers. I can say that because they were the CW Post Pioneers in those days.
Yes.
And they were finishing up their season during the week with a win over Hofstra and a double overtime loss to Adelphi. So the Pioneers finishing up their season in basketball. Over in the pros, again, only one team in the neighborhood, the Knicks. Also another horrible year for the Knicks, 29-48, playing out the string in Cincinnati, finishing up a home-and-home series, coming off of Sunday's loss to the Royals at Madison Square Garden. Cincinnati's led by Big O, Oscar Robertson, a Hall of Famer, and Jerry Lucas, later to become a New York Knick in their second championship season. They beat the Knicks on the prior night, 113-103. And then we go to college basketball besides post, but the two big tournaments going on at this time was, first of all, the National Invitation Tournament, which was a major tournament back then, was continuing this evening, the 16th, at Madison Square Garden with two quarterfinal games, Detroit versus NYU and Army versus Western Kentucky. And the prior night, last night, number one seed Villanova, led by Bill Melchione, who would become a New York Net, beat Manhattan to move into the semis, and Joe Lapchick's St. John's team, led by Kenny McIntyre, stunned the number two seed New Mexico to advance as well. And should we spoil it for them and tell them that St. John's won the tournament?
Sure.
Well, they did.
Do people actually know that there was a coach before Lou Carnesecca? Do they actually know that?
Probably not. And Joe probably didn't wear he probably wore a tie and didn't wear the sweaters like Lou got known for. The NCAA's, which has become obviously the predominant basketball tournament, but kind of shared the billing back in those days with NIT, was taking place at the same time. It was off on the night of the 16th, but there were some big games coming up. Bill Bradley and the Princeton Tigers became the first Ivy League school to reach the semis in 31 years. They were getting ready to take on Michigan on Saturday night. Michigan led by future Knicks teammate and champion Cazzie Russell. And back in December at the Holiday Festival in Madison Square Garden, Russell and Michigan beat Bradley and Princeton by 2 points in the finals of that tournament after Dollar Bill fouled out with 5 minutes left, leading by 12. So they were about to meet again. And
Those were very memorable games in college basketball history. And yes, they both ended up with the Knicks. And both helped the Knicks win the 1970 championship. Clearly down the road, though. It's 5 years later.
Absolutely. And Bill Bradley will go on to obviously become senator from New Jersey and run for president, et cetera, et cetera. As well in the NCAA's, UCLA was beginning their big run, and being led by Gail Goodrich, a future Laker. They moved into the semifinals with a win over San Francisco, and they will play on Friday in the Western Regional Championship, the other side of the brackets, against Wichita. And that is it for sports. With a lot less local teams than we have today.
Yeah, they hadn't invented, the Islanders hadn't been invented yet.
No.
The Nets hadn't been invented.
The Devils, etc.
Yeah, it's still the original six there in the NHL. All right, Neil, thanks so much for joining us today on this 50th anniversary of WCWP.
My pleasure, my honor, and always fun to be able to do a broadcast with you, Jeff.
Neil Marks, former sports director here at 88.1 FM. And now we go right to our phones. We have another one of our alums has joined us all the way from the great sunny area of Phoenix, Arizona, or that area. What town are you in, Phil?
I'm in Surprise, about 30 miles outside of town.
Surprise, Arizona. Phil Leibowitz joins us here on our celebration of the 50th anniversary of WCWP. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you very much. It was good. While I was on hold, I was listening to all those highlights that Neil was talking about. It brought back a lot of memories.
How about those names, huh? Some of those names. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, 50 years ago.
That was even before the Jersey Americans.
That's right. Yeah, the ABA hadn't started yet, and the NHL was still with the original six, as they're now referred to. And the baseball teams were actually, that was not a good year for the baseball teams. The Yankees were going off the cliff, and the Mets still hadn't really found themselves. So tough times there. But welcome aboard, Phil. Phil, tell folks what year you started here at WCWP.
I started in 1970, fall of 1970, and I actually walked in the door before the Steve Post era, or at the Steve Post era, and then when that raised its ugly head, I was one of the few people that came back from that, and it was the beginning of a whole new life for me, and it's changed my life tremendously. I wound up working for NBC for 28 years, and wouldn't have been doing that if it wasn't for WCWP.
Phil was talking about sports and the sports report we just heard with Neil. And Phil, of course, was sports director here at WCWP and covered basketball and football for years and broke me in. He broke me in. Everybody had to come up the way with Phil, and eventually we got to work together. It was those were great times.
Yeah, I even wanted to cover a golf tournament, but Bill Moser thought I was crazy, and now they're doing golf on the radio, so maybe I was a forecaster of many things to come.
All right, now the guy you just thought thought you were crazy is actually sitting here listening to you.
Hey, Phil.
Hello, Mr. Moser. How are you?
They call my father Mr. Moser. I'm Bill.
Okay, Bill. Glad you're well, and I hope you guys are enjoying your day there. I'm sorry I can't be there, but it's a great weekend for everybody at WCWP.
Well, it's a great weekend for you. Congratulations. I understand you just passed your real estate licensing.
Yeah, I passed the broker's exam out here in Arizona for an ultimate move. I'll be coming back to Jersey for very soon, but hopefully by summertime I think I'm going to make this my new home.
Well, I got an idea for you, Phil. You could do some underwriting here for your services in Arizona and pitch all these New Yorkers up here looking at dirty snow and taxes that are out of control. And I was just talking to Mr. Hunter Camp here.
All I can tell you is that I've been out here for 2 months trying to take this godforsaken test, and I've had 3 days of drizzle, and the rest of it has been unobstructed sunshine and 75 to 90 degree weather. It's truly paradise. I mean, it gets hot in the summer, but as they say out here, you don't have to shovel the sun.
We have another one of your buddies is here, Phil. Joe Hunterkamp is sitting here with us.
I was also going to say congratulations to Joe that he retired this week, which is a great thing for him, and I think he's going to enjoy many happy years, and maybe he and his wife will come out here. I know they got too many kids back in New York, but maybe they'll come back out here for snowbird season.
Nice to hear from you, Phil.
Good to hear from you. And I hope everybody's having a wonderful time. I heard you had a good time on Saturday. And I don't know if Joe made it there, but I know a lot of other people were there. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
Yeah, it was Saturday night. We had a dinner celebration for the 50th anniversary of the station. And if you just stumbled across us here, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the beginning of FM 88 WCWP, started on this date, March 16th, 1965. So we've been celebrating all afternoon with this special broadcast and a lot of memories and a lot of alums stopping by, some from as recently graduated in the 2000s, and of course Hank Niemark, who was here with us earlier, who actually spoke the first words into a WCWP microphone, much as I'm doing right now. He did that 50 years ago this afternoon. It's really a kick. Just saying it. I'm getting a big kick out of saying that. So,
well, it's many and many happy memories, and Jeff, you and I traveled. Joe and I traveled as well. We had a lot of key moments that we all remember, and it helped us grow and it helped us mature, and it turned us all onto greater and better lives.
What do you mean mature?
And Bill's help too. Well,
we're still kids.
As I said before, you can be young once, but immature for the rest of your life.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
That's a man thing. Try to explain that to women, and they say, men never grow up. I come home with something from Home Depot. My wife says, oh, you brought another toy. I said, no, it's a tool. No, it's a toy. No, it's a tool. It's all a matter of perspective. So men never grow up. I can attest to that. In fact, men are a bunch of men are a bunch of dicks.
I think Bill's trying to get this show to end early. I think he's had enough. He wants to go home. He can say one word, and then we can shut the mics and get the heck out of here. Hey, Phil, thanks very much for checking in with us. Always...
My best to everybody that's listening, and my best to everybody that is there that I haven't been able to talk to. But, geez, I mean, I just hope everybody has a great time, because it's marking probably one of the biggest moments of my life and a lot of other people's as well.
Hey, Phil, before you go, Lori Sarafin is out in Arizona.
Oh, is she really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Whereabouts, do you know?
You got me on that one.
Yeah.
Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's about a half hour away.
Everything's only a half hour away out there in Phoenix. The whole place has been. That's the way it's been built. Well, it's just if you start in downtown Phoenix, they've just built all these communities have built up in this great big circle from the mountains. You go to it's kind of a boundary to the north, and then they just keep building out into the desert as they need more space. They build another community, and they build more roads, and there you go.
There's a road about a half a mile from where I am right now. It's Route 303 that they just completed about 90% of it. It's like the New Jersey Turnpike with no cars.
But
what a concept.
The difference is they think ahead. They build these roads because they have an idea that there's a community coming up, and then eventually they have the community there. The road is already in place, where here we build the communities, and then we can't understand why there's total gridlock, and then they try to figure out what to do.
I was taking my classes for the license in Scottsdale during the time that the Super Bowl was the 2 weeks that they were here for Super Bowl. And at that point, Scottsdale reminded me of the Long Island Expressway. It was so crowded. And there's not much they can do about it. There's no place to go.
Well, it's the LIE without the potholes. Phil, one thing, when you get back next week, prepare for potholes, because you haven't seen any, and we've got them all. Man, it's a bad season for them. So get ready. It's coming. Safe trip back next week, pal. I'll see you when you're home.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking in, Phil.
Everybody.
Have a good one, Phil. Congratulations.
Bye-bye, Phil.
WCWP.
All right, that's Phil Leibowitz joining us here on our celebration of the 50th anniversary of the radio station. Still joined by Bill Moser. Joe Hunterkamp is with us. Alan Seltzer is with us. Bobby G will be back with us here shortly. He's getting revved up because they have the rest of that top 10 they're going to play for you next hour. We have the news coming up at 55. It's all happening here at 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Joe, as long as you're still with us, I know your daughter likes to listen to this station over in Japan. And
We have quite a listener base over there, and it's no joke because I hear from her. I tell her ahead of time, yeah, Dad's going to be on the radio. And she loves what goes on here. Her friends love it. And
they don't speak English.
Apparently that helps.
It's just really funny what goes on with that.
But it is a kick. We've mentioned it along the way when Hank was here earlier, how things have changed. He was talking about how in 1965 they wondered about spending. There were factions here on the campus that wondered about spending that kind of money that it would take to open a radio station like this when the word was radio was dying. Radio, it was over for radio because television had really come on in the 60s. And yet here we are 50 years later celebrating this station, WCWP. So, they said radio was dying then, and now you can hear this little pipsqueak station anywhere in the world as long as you have internet. It's amazing.
I mean, along with listeners in Japan, Chris McIntosh, who does the Rock and Soul Gospel show here for 33 years, 32 years, something like that, on Friday nights and on Sunday evenings, he's told me he has listeners out of Russia. So there's just a wide range. This is not a local radio station anymore on 88.1 FM. It is an international station.
Oh, it's very nice. It's nice.
It's awesome responsibility.
So
it doesn't matter.
That's supposed to be That's supposed to make me nervous sitting over here?
No, because they don't understand what you're saying.
But we had some great times learning. We were learning the craft and had a lot of fun doing it, and road trips and stuff to football and basketball games really were a part of the education. And thanks to Bill always finding the funding, we were able to do stuff like that. I was actually talking to the Pioneer reporter. The Post-Pioneer had a reporter here, and apparently there's going to be a story about this event in this week's paper, and I was talking to her about it. I said, well, your people, they didn't like me very much when I was a student. And she said, why? I said, well, we were under the gun. The expenses had gone up for doing road games. And I don't know if people nowadays can actually envision this, but the way you called a game back then at a station like this, we couldn't get a radio line. We had to call in on the phone. And the only way to do it was to call a collect call from out of state. And those calls were very expensive. Bill can attest to that. And the phone line was open for 3.5 or 4 hours on a Saturday for a football game. And that was quite an expense back then. It would sound expensive now. Now, of course, thanks to cell phones, you can call anywhere for nothing because it's all part of your package. But it was difficult. So you actually gave me the assignment one day and said, we have to cut some of the expenses. And one of the things that popped into my mind was the Pioneer was always hitching a ride with us to road games. They would send their reporter, and sometimes a photographer would jump in the car because we were going to drive to the games. And it seemed to me that was a free ride for them because we had all the expenses. And, you're paying the bills that we had to hand in, and it just seemed like maybe they should pay a little bit of that, and I
$456 to New York tax.
Came up with a formula, and I was the one who had to go over there and break the news to them one day. There's no more free rides, and from that point on, they didn't like me very much. But the premise was, and I always thought it was a very fair premise. If you have to take yourselves to the games, you have 100% of the expenses. If we take you to the games, we worked out a formula for figuring that out. It's far better than what you would do if you did it yourself. So, you ought to see it our way and do that. And monkey around with the figures a little bit, and it worked out. There was one time, Bill, where they didn't want to pay. It didn't matter what I came up with. They didn't want to pay. So they... It was a problem, and finally I did. This was for a basketball playoff game. I did this with Bruce Leonard out in Pennsylvania, and so I came up with a gimmick where, all right, we'll cut the price, and we'll write the article for you. We will write. You don't even have to send anybody, but you have to chip in a little bit, and Bruce and I will write the article. And we have the back page byline. We wrote the article on the playoff games that weekend, and we got a pot full of money to cover the broadcast. So we did them in, and also, and I showed Pat this last week when we were up at the Pioneer office. We had a gimmick where not only did you have to pay the money, you had to give us an ad on the sports page on the bottom. There had to be an ad that said that WCWP was broadcasting the game, let's say at 1 o'clock or 1:30, whatever it was. If I don't see the ad in there, you're not getting in the car. So
you know, a person that we haven't mentioned here is Brian Kilmeade, who is our sports director. And, of course, Brian has been on Fox and Friends and a part of the Fox News Channel for probably 15 years, if not longer. Another WCWP success story. And speaking of success, we have 4 people coming in here, 4, that are going to deliver current news instead of this old fogey news that we've been talking about here.
Yeah, so you guys kind of have to get out of the way so that they get into position.
Okay.
Out comes the hook.
Yeah, there
Bye.
you get the hook. You can come back at 6 o'clock, and we're going to get them in. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We haven't worked on this at all, but I would like to at least say hello to all of you on the air and hear about what's going on here on the campus. You know, we've been talking about suddenly you have a cough and a cold, and you don't want to take part anymore. We have been talking about 1965 all afternoon because the station signed on the air 50 years ago today, and we've been talking about what campus life was like, and there have been people on the air from the 60s and the 70s and right up the line. But I'd like to hear, and hopefully those listening would like to hear, what life is like here on the LIU Post campus in 2015. So first of all, introduce yourselves. You'll be doing the news in about a minute. And I mean, if we miss by a few seconds, what are they going to do? They'll kick me off the air? I don't know. Go ahead, introduce yourselves.
I'm Stephanie Rule.
And what year are you in?
I'm a senior. I only have a couple weeks left, so I'm graduating soon. And
Okay.
I'm a member of the field hockey team as well. So, I mean, I love it here, obviously.
And the field hockey team has been
Yeah.
very successful.
Yes, the
here.
past 2
Are
years.
Are you off? They just finished the field hockey season.
Yeah, we finished in December, which
That was a fall sport, right?
Yeah, we finished in December in the NCAA finals.
Right.
We didn't come out winners,
I know,
but
in the final,
yeah, but it was
final
awesome.
game. And so you've been working at the station for how long?
Since I
I
declared my major as like a first semester sophomore.
Okay, and your major is?
Broadcasting.
Very good.
Love it.
Very good.
Yeah, it's
Well,
really, and every like you guys said before, everyone's a family here. So I have so many connections now, and I have so many friends here.
That's great. Let me go around, and then we'll get to the news. And you are?
My name is Caitlin Gambino.
And what year are you in?
I'm a junior.
A junior, yes. And are you what's your major here?
My major is broadcasting.
It
as
is
well.
broadcasting.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And you've been at the station your entire post career?
Yes. My first semester is starting sophomore year. So.
Okay. Great.
I absolutely enjoyed it.
So, but you have another year to go. So
yes,
you'll hold the fort.
Yes.
Next year too. All right. Next we have.
I'm Aliza Gulab.
And what year are you in?
I'm also a junior.
A junior. Okay, yes. That's good. So you have continuing people next year, and what's your major? Are you all broadcasting?
Mm-hmm.
You are. Okay. And one more member.
My name's Connor Vogt.
And what year are you in?
I'm a senior also.
A senior. Okay, so 2 seniors, 2 juniors. This is a veteran crew here we have this afternoon here on WCWP. I think one of you is going to swing around and use my microphone, I guess, right? And we come up now 4 minutes till 6 o'clock here on Monday, the 16th of March. This is WCWP, Brookville, New York.
This is WCWP News.
This is your WCWP Evening Newscast. I'm Aliza Gulab.
I'm Stephanie Rule.
And I'm Caitlin Gambino. 3 teenagers from Northwest London were released on bail after being arrested on alleged preparation of terrorist acts. Police learned of 2 17-year-old boys who were missing and suspected to be traveling to Syria with a 19-year-old man. The teens were stopped while trying to enter Turkey. Turkish authorities questioned the teens before they returned back to London and were arrested shortly after.
Yahoo administrators want to make sure that users never forget their passwords or use passwords that are too weak to invite hackers in. The company is introducing an on-demand password system, which sends users a text message with a new password every time they log in. Cyber experts agree that this will improve security as long as users don't lose their phones. If this happens, then anyone will have access to someone's email account.
An armed robber strikes again, this time at a gas station in Hicksville. Nassau County Police now say that the individual responsible could be linked to almost a dozen other service station robberies that have taken place since December. Surveillance video shows a suspect who is described as an African-American male, 6 feet tall with a slim build. He wore a dark hoodie and a black bandana covering his face. Police ask anyone with information about the suspect to call Crime Stoppers at 800-244-TIPS. Callers are confidential.
The search is on for 2 suspects in connection with the shooting of 2 Los Angeles police officers. The officers were in street clothes and an unmarked car when they were shot in a Florence neighborhood. Many officers rushed to the scene and took people into questioning. No arrests have been made. The officers are believed to be the main targets of the shooting.
In a recent battle between ISIS and Iraqi forces, the tomb of Saddam Hussein was crushed to pieces, but it is not clear which side did it. Along with the tomb, ISIS smashed ancient statues, bulldozed ruins, old churches, mosques, and shrines. Many are confused as to why ISIS would do this to the heritage of their grandfathers. For over 5,000 years, the tomb has stood as a symbol of the glory of ancient civilization.
The National Weather Service has confirmed that Boston officially broke its snowfall record for one season, notching up 108.6 inches this winter. The city is known to set numerous snow records. February was the snowiest February on record in Boston at 64.8 inches. Now here's Connor with sports.
The New York Knicks fell to the Phoenix Suns last night, 102-89. The Knicks have an NBA worst 13-53 overall record with only 4 wins on the road this season. The Suns' point guard Eric Bledsoe was just 1 rebound short of a triple-double in last night's game. He finished with 21 points and 11 assists. The Knicks are off tonight but are back in action tomorrow when they take on the San Antonio Spurs. The Brooklyn Nets return to action tonight to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. This will be the first time the Nets face former teammate Kevin Garnett since they traded him earlier this season. The Timberwolves are currently on a 4-game losing streak and have only won 2 out of their last 10 games. The opening tip is scheduled for an 8 o'clock start. The March Madness tournament brackets were announced yesterday. Kentucky, Villanova, Duke, and Wisconsin all earned top seeds in their regions. Kentucky is the early favorite to win the national championship after going undefeated all season, but it's March Madness, anything can happen. Sliding it over to hockey, the New York Rangers continued their strong play last night when they defeated the Florida Panthers 2-1. Cam Talbot made 38 saves in front of the sold-out crowd at Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have 2 nights off but return to the ice on Wednesday when they face off against Chicago. Now, back to Caitlin.
The hashtag boycott Dolce & Gabbana is trending, but why? This Sunday, Elton John began the hashtag via Instagram when he learned through an Italian magazine interview that Dolce & Gabbana only believe in traditional marriage. The fashion duo said, "Children who aren't born into traditional families are children of chemistry." They also called them synthetic babies. Elton John, who has kids via a surrogate, was annoyed by the comments about the children of gay couples. He says, "How dare you bring down the dreams of any type of couple to one day have children." John says he will never ever wear D&G again. For WCWP News, I'm Caitlin Gambino.
I'm Stephanie Rule.
I'm Elisa Gulab.
And I'm Connor Vogt. Now back to the music on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Years ago today, on March 16th, 1965, 88.1 FM WCWP signed on the air for the first time. Welcome to this special broadcast marking this milestone here on 88.1 FM WCWP, Brookville, New York.
Yes, indeed. It is a minute past 6 o'clock as we continue here at 88.1 FM and online at WCWP.org. with the celebration of the 50th anniversary of this radio station. That's a nice group of newscasters here at 88.1, and that's a big day for them. You know, this show is like going to live in perpetuity around here. It's being recorded. It's going to go in the archives, and they will forever be a part of that. We have to tell them that.
Thank goodness
I don't know
they don't
if
have
they
that
had
checks
known
to me earlier in my career.
Yeah, if they had known that, they might have gotten nervous or
Hopefully
something.
they paid their tuition bill.
They do a good job. Well, it's March. I think you have to pay up by now. It's mid-March. So that's great. But we're back here celebrating the 50th anniversary of the station. The station signed on the air at 4 in the afternoon on what was Tuesday, March 16th, 1965. And today, being Monday, March 16th, 2015, you add that up and divide by whatever, you come up with 50. And it's 50 years ago this afternoon that this station signed on the air. My name is Jeff Kroll, and it's really been an honor to be the host this afternoon and kind of traffic cop for this whole thing as people are in and out of the studio and on the phones and all of that. And joining me right now, we have Bobby G is here, and Bernie Bernard is here, and Alan Seltzer is here, and Joe Hunterkamp is with us. And my wife, Pat Kroll, is here, and she's done yeoman's service here on the phones and keeping these people in line, demanding that they get right on the air when people were in the middle of really good stories. So we would make them hang on, and I don't know how happy they were, but what are they going to do? So it's good. Bill Moser is still with us, so the crowd is still here, and we'll be with you until about 6:30 when we will then move on to Bobby. Explain what's coming up at 6:30.
We're going to play the top 5 that were the hits of the day in New York.
This exact date.
From 5 to 1. And we also have some of the artists that will be talking about the individual recordings. And we also have a couple of special little bits and pieces added in. So it should be very, very interesting.
It should be, and we're looking forward to that. 10 through 6 were great, right. And so now you're getting to even the big leagues, 5 till number 1.
So at 6:29, Jeff, that's when we're going to go.
We're going to hit it at 6:29. All right.
Give us a minute to do the other stuff at the top of the hour.
It was pre-recorded,
so it's there.
We know exactly.
Well, Mike Riccio had to leave, so we had to do that right now before we quartered away.
So that's all good stuff, and that was the survey. And as Mike continuously pointed out during the countdown, the surveys were released on Tuesday afternoons.
That's true.
So since March 16th, 1965 was a Tuesday, that really was.
And Bill Moses should remember that.
A survey.
You had to get new carts ready, didn't you? You have to put new music in the machine. Otherwise, you'd be playing the same records over and over again in perpetuity. And then we'd be boring broadcasting.
Well, and then they wore those carts. I mean, they played
and then we got them here.
The top hit, the number one. How often was the number one song was played?
It had to be played every hour.
70 minutes?
No, it had to be played every hour.
Every hour, sometime?
And then the top 14 had to be played every 90 minutes.
So the carts.
It wasn't
took
very
a beating.
repetitive.
There was tape inside of a cartridge.
They were like 8-tracks with a 1,000-cycle tone on one.
Bill has a comment about tape cartridges.
Tell about cartridges.
Yeah,
Hi, Bill.
I'm just flashing back to my days at WABC. There was this whole myth built up around WABC and processing and the echo. The echo was inserted at the transmitter in Lodi, New Jersey, and it was a huge EMT reverb chamber that was very unique in the sense that radio stations never used reverb on that expensive level. This thing was thousands of dollars, but it was just top notch. A lot of the radio stations had these little cheesy spring things that people used to attach to their car radios to make a reverb. But the Rick Sklar, who will go down in the history of radio, he started this system of these countdown clocks, and the jock, when they played any one of the top 4, they would hit a button, and these clocks would cycle and then remind them that the top 4 had to be played, within the next.
And I want to thank you for inviting up myself and Mike Riccio when you were our chief engineer here. I mean, it was an eye-opener, and it helped me want to get into professional radio, and I learned a lot from you. And I always tell people that when I was taught here at WCWP, although I don't do any production work now, I have your ears on things, and things that you've done that are on the air and stuff like that. You are a master of sound. You've won Emmys in sound engineering. And you know what? 99.9% of the audience may not hear things the way you do. And I think that I'm pretty decent, but if something's not quite right, and Bernie Bernard is an excellent, engineer as well, we know, and we work with the kids still, and bring this up here. This is a little bit too abrupt. We give a little bits of advice, and you help me, with that. And another thing I want to mention to you, while I have you here, when we had Art Garfunkel here, that was. My son is not a person who's an audiophile. And my wife, she likes the folky music. If I want to take the stuff where you get your head blown off, she's not interested. But they were so impressed with the sound that was set up for that. They were just blown away. And you know what? everything you have been involved with, whether it be engineering at WABC or doing stuff here on campus, or even when I was a kid, finding the sweet spots in the ceilings where we hang the boom mics from, and letting me run the board for like Handel's Messiah with 8,000 trillion musicians. Not that I could interview anybody because I didn't know the music, but setting it up. I mean, I learned a lot from you. And basically, I tell people I live with music. I live for music. Music is the universal language, and sound. You know, I don't watch that much television myself. I'm a sound guy. And I know you are too, but you were involved in television. So why don't you tell some of the people about your career? Because even though we're talking about WCWP, your profile is just unbelievable in terms of the number of things you've done over the years. I mean, you are Mr. WCWP, by the way.
Well, I was very fortunate. My career evolved into, well, I first started here, and then I worked for, I think, 2 years at WTFM, which was out on the Long Island
103.5.
Expressway. And then a dear friend of mine, George Berger, who was a contemporary of mine at the Hofstra radio station, WVHC. George was working at WABC. He says, Billy, he said, come on up. He said, there's some work up here for you. And I went there in 1969, and I was very, very fortunate to have, at the end of that summer relief program, as they called it, for engineers, that I was hired permanently. And I spent 15 years at WABC and WPLJ with people like Tony Pigg and Pat St. John and Dave Herman and Liz Zackerly, Tony Pigg. And on the AM side, I worked with Brucey and Chuck Leonard and Dan Ingram, and occasionally I'd work with Harry Harrison or with Ron Lundy, but I was there primarily later in the day.
I spoke to Cousin Brucey a couple of weeks ago, actually about 3 weeks ago. He was doing this serious program, and one of our interns here, Bernie and I, suggested that this person who's a student, he had these choices, and he didn't know Cousin Brucey from a hole in the wall. And we said, oh, man, you got it. And we convinced him to get the job to intern with Brucey. And I said hello for you to Cousin Bruce. And also for a friend of mine. I said to send the email. Go ahead, Bernie, step in.
The funny story about our student, he comes in all excited. He says, hey, I got an internship at Sirius XM. I'm working with Cousin Brucey. So that's great. He goes, who the hell's Cousin Brucey? We sat him down for about an hour.
Right, and we told him you have to go with Bruce.
Yeah. And then he said, oh, so he's like a really big deal. I said, yeah, about the biggest you can get.
About the biggest. And I'm going to tell you this. I heard this on the 50th anniversary party. I don't know if you heard it or not, but Imus was working with one of the engineers, and the person didn't know who Dan Ingram was.
Oh.
Ooh. It's almost like, you should have a little book about the history of WABC that you have to read before you're allowed to work there. Of course, Dan Ingram, if you don't know and you're a listener here, I don't know, but Dan was like the premier New York City DJ in the world, and I'm sure you have some great stories you could tell us about Dan.
Dan lived right down the road here in Oyster Bay Cove.
And he used to stop in and say hi.
And he had a studio in his home. He called it the Marlboro Studio because he was doing dozens of voiceover jobs in those days, and the studio was paid for by Marlboro Cigarettes.
Right.
His wife had taken a couple of classes here, and he came into the station one day. I wasn't here for this, but he left behind a recording which played for years.
For years.
And I
played it.
And I said to folks, do you realize that he's goofing on you?
Yeah. But you know what? It didn't matter.
The message was, hi, I'm Dan Ingram. And whenever I'm on the campus of CW Post College...
And my boss doesn't know it.
I always listen to WCWP. Well, he's never here, therefore he never listens to it.
That's right. But it didn't matter. It was like the voice of God to the college kids, But to talk about a broadcast, what I liked about Dan was he would put his little things in the middle of commercials. He never made fun of the product, but he would make fun of the commercial, like the Frankfurt 2 chicken stuff. He would put, or something stupid in the middle of the commercial, which was hilarious. He was like such a talent.
One of the things that Dan used to share with us is he said you have to make the words live. And when Dan read a piece of copy, he was in your head. Bernadette Castro, that wrote the commercials for Castro convertibles in those days, her copywriting was very, very stilted. And Dan would just ad-lib his way through this. And he made mush. He made sense out of mush.
Right.
And apparently she didn't take to that very well, so one piece of copy showed up, disc jockey, do not ad-lib this copy, which he read because
he read on
was
the air.
In the
it
box.
was in the box, right.
And then
that's a Dan Ingram deal.
And then proceeded to read word by word by word.
Without that feeling you're talking about.
That's right.
He just, and it was so bad. Of course, the phone call came through. All right, just do whatever you have to do.
Right.
But
well, they wanted live reads on WABC. I remember Charlie Greer overnight having to read Dennis and a men's clothier.
yeah, but he didn't read those live. They were recorded.
They wanted those DJs, like in the afternoon, though, to read all that stuff live.
Charlie Greer would read, I think, maybe 1 out of 5 live, but they were recorded.
Yeah.
Dennis and Clothiers.
Oh, who could do that? I mean, how often can you?
But then
Can you
WABC
read the
went
same?
into the talk format, and I was fortunate to work with Bob Grant and Dr. Judy Kuryansky and even Gary Null on Sunday nights, and Alan Combs. We did a show with Alan. I engineered Alan Combs on WABC.
And then you got into TV at some point.
Well, I went over to the ABC radio network for another 4 or 5 years, and then I jumped out, and I worked on the Today Show for a while.
Right.
And
all with the sound part, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't do any camera stuff, of course, right?
And then I had the good fortune of hooking up with One Life to Live, and I wound
right.
up staying there for
Soap
7
opera,
years
very
doing
long
audio
time.
on One Life to Live. I did occasional work down at All My Children, but One Life to Live unfortunately went off the air, and then I jumped over to The Chew for a couple of seasons. And then I decided to go with Regis Philbin on Fox Sports 1, a show called The Crowd Goes Wild, which didn't last more than a season because Regis decided to retire and the whole show retired. And so here I am, 50 years later, talking about a career which, as I say, I'm very, very fortunate to have.
Well, I tell you trained a lot of people.
Thank
You opened up the door for a lot of people. And you, as I said, if anyone else disputes this, I'll tackle them to the ground. You are Mr. WCWP.
Thank you. Well, now Dan Cox is Mr. WCW.
No, you were still you.
Yes.
He's like with
But
a
he
little
learns from
asterisk
you.
next to
He
his
always
name.
gives you credit. Every
'Cause you go
conversation
back
I have,
further
your
than
name,
he
your
does.
name comes up anytime we have a conversation. Your name comes up.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little asterisk next to here. She's the current resident. But
I've
you
got-
are Mr.
I've got-
WCWP.
He's the permanent interim.
I've got a
Emeritus.
Mr.
I've got a, emeritus.
I've got a great Dan Cox story.
Okay, good.
Before this,
Before we get thrown
we had
off the
air
air.
conditioning, and the back door was open in the summer
it's much
just to get a
nicer.
breeze. And Dan was in this very studio doing Maximum Music or Rock and Roll Weekend or whatever it was, and I would come and go at all kinds of odd hours of the day and night. So I come in the back door on the weekend, and I see Dan going, "Oh, Moser's here." And I see him kicking something under the console. So, and beads of sweat are pouring out of it. His ears are steaming and dripping. Oh, no, this is the end of me on the radio here. And I looked down and I said, I'll have one of those as long as it's ice cold. It was a 6-pack of beer.
There you go.
Talking about breaking the ice.
Now they're all legends of WCWP, and one of them was that we would play Inagata Davida and put it on the turntable and run out of the station to Burger King and see if we could get back by the end of the 17 minutes and change whatever it was. Bernie might want to talk about
legend only.
He's
Like
he's
nobody would
legend.
ever do that.
Nobody would ever do that, of course.
I mean, there were all kinds of shenanigans that went on.
Now, do you have some favorites you'd like to share now that you've blown the one on Dan? Go ahead. We've got several minutes before we go to the
Oh
pre-record.
no, you guys have the stories because you pulled all this crap behind my back.
Until the record started skipping. Then you were in trouble.
you're in
You were
trouble.
halfway down the road.
Yeah, you had to make sure you had a clean
Well,
copy.
everybody fudged the meter readings. I mean, that was like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
Yeah.
You would just ditto down the page.
Right.
Duplicate the number, or maybe change a number here
But
and there.
the rules for FCC have changed unbelievably.
rules? There are no what FCC? They're just a money-making
Yeah, now
organization
it's
these
complete.
days,
It's to me, it's actually a shame what's happened with the FCC.
Well, I think it's happened with a lot of regulatory bodies. They're just fundraisers for our government these days in terms of enforcing. I mean, some of that stuff is silly by today's technology.
Yeah.
Transmitters don't go drifting off. That thing that's in there.
See, my logo I still use is all power to the transmitter, so that's outdated. But I don't care. It's what I used back in the day.
Sign the log and take a rating at the end of your show.
Yeah, you had to do the log. And
What did Ingram want?
Oh, by the way,
Ingram had this great line before I forget it. It was WABC, the station with a transmitter.
When I was at Lodi one time, you could actually hear off the fence WABC without any radio or any device. You could stand within a couple of feet of the fence and actually hear WABC like oozing out of the fence.
Well, there were fluorescent tubes in the tuning house. There was no electricity in the tuning house except the power from the transmitter. 50,000 watts was quite adequate to light up anything, including your brain.
Those stations were so powerful; they could be heard so far away. And there was a day I was out in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and there were only 2 stations I could get on the radio in my car. Neither one of them was from North Carolina. One was WABC and one was WNBC from New York, bouncing down the coast like that, because Cape Hatteras happens to be sticking way out in the water. But the stations,
but
a
you
lot
guys,
of people,
Jeff Kroll and Joe Honorkamp here, and Bruce Leonard, Jeff Wright, Bill Epperhart, and a host of others, Phil Leibowitz. I mean, you guys were a part of radio history down the block on 6th Avenue at WNBC and WYNY. So, I mean, you guys had your own illustrious careers in another part of.
And we have this
radio
place
history.
to thank for it. I have always said this. Nothing that I was faced with at any of those stations, and I worked for the network as well, I was never challenged as we challenged ourselves out here. So there wasn't anything they could hit me with that I would blink an eye at. And we were very well trained out here. Everything was top notch, and we always seemed to all be picked for the plum assignments and things like that. I mean, I was picked once. There was a change of formats at WNBC, so they plucked me out and said, you have to record all the songs for the new format. I mean, they could have picked one of the guys that had been there 15 years. I hadn't been there all that long at the time, but I had, I guess, built up some credibility. There was one thing. I worked at the NBC network. There was a news network. Didn't last very long. News and Information Service, NIS. That's actually how I got into the network up there. And then I joined you down in local once that thing went down. But we start running, and they had these news sounders. So every show would open with a news sounder. So the news sounder was played twice an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Add that up. That's 336 times that one tape cartridge was hit in a week. So after several months, I'm looking at it one night, and I mean, this thing is hanging by a thread. So I was working overnight, so it was hard to get a hold of anybody in charge. But I asked, well, where's the backup? Because when this thing goes any second, I mean, we're going to hit the button, it's not going to work. There are no backups. What do you mean there's no backup? That's it. So we had to go through hoops and think to get the news director. His name was Alan Walden. Turned out to be a good friend after all of this. To get Alan to get the master tapes out so that we could re-record this lousy news sounder so that it wouldn't break on the air. When I said to him, we need 2 copies. So that makes a lot of sense. He said. So things like that we learned here. We watched just tape cartridges and things. We just knew what to do. We knew how to edit tape and stuff.
Jeff, was it you or Bruce Leonard who told the story about nobody knew what tape was or how to edit? There was some tape that was supposed to be edited that you were the only guys who knew how to do it because it was all digital by then?
Oh, that would be Bruce, because I was out of there, before digital took over. One thing that happened to me was there was a time that on Joe on our station WYNY they started a show called Saturday with Sinatra, and was a really wonderful guy. He's still going. I think he's 96 years old now. Sid Mark. He still does a syndicated show on weekends. Sid would come up from Philadelphia and do this show, and I got called in the office one day and told, you're doing the show Saturday night. Now, I worked Monday through Friday in those days, so Saturday, extra night. Why? Well, this guy's bringing his records up, his actual vinyl records of Frank Sinatra, singles and albums, and we asked around and we found out that you know how to play vinyl records on the radio, and we weren't doing those things back then. And I said, well, yeah, I do, but who ratted me out? That's what I wanted to know. And they gave me all this stuff. Well, you see, we have to be careful. His collection is considered priceless, so we want to take special care. Oh, yeah, priceless. Right. Guy shows up. He's a wonderful guy, Sid Mark. And we open up these 2 custom-made cases, and I look inside. They were priceless. Every cut, every single or album, they were special pressed versions. They were not the ones that you would get in the store or that we would find in the NBC record library at that time. And every single one of them had a handwritten note from Frank. It was either on the record itself or on the cover of the album. So it was at this concert, and I signed this in Philadelphia, and we did this in Las Vegas, and we did this, and I'll see you Saturday, and love Frank, and this, and I'm looking, I said, it is priceless. Holy smokes. So it was a kick. I ended up having a great time doing that. I only did 2 shows. That was it. And then I convinced him, I said, somebody's going to have to take this over because you really don't want me working 6 days a week. So we trained somebody, and she did that show, Elise, a wonderful engineer there. She did that show, I think, for 5 more years. So, and she was very good at it.
On that show.
Yeah. So it was the biggest money maker the station had, and it was on Saturday nights. They got to charge the highest rates that they charged any time, including Morning Drive, was on Saturday with Sinatra. It was a very popular show, and I helped get that started. So there you go. Because I learned something here at WCWP to play records, on the radio. We're coming up on, when we get to 6:29, right? We're going to hit this thing at 6:29.
Ron Kuby has joined us here. Hey,
hey Ron, how you doing?
Hello. Come on in.
This is Tony from The Rock Show.
Yeah.
He does Mondays for us.
And another
we
one
don't
of our...
usually intersect.
That's right.
We
That's
keep
true,
away
actually.
from each other. We see each other at concerts.
I was going to say, we see each other at shows.
One of our WCWP alums, and we're here celebrating the 50th anniversary of the station, was this afternoon, officially at 4 o'clock, and we've been on since, and somehow we're still on, and we're going to stall until 6:29. We're going to hit something that'll last right up to the beginning of your show. You'll be on at 7.
Okay. You're late for your shift, Tony.
Who did...
Am I suspended?
Yeah, we're going till 9. Did somebody break champagne in the tower at least to celebrate? I mean, really?
We were afraid. We were afraid what would happen
There
if
was
we
somebody
did.
urinating out there before.
Good enough. The good ship WCWP.
That's right.
It wasn't me.
That's right. So, oh, gee.
So
Things never change.
Hey, how do you follow that?
I don't know. I give up completely. Well, that's pretty funny.
But all the alums coming by now. The Rock Show, which is really what this is about at 7 o'clock, is a series of alums who handle that every weeknight from 7 to 9. Tony, you're on every Monday, so you never get a break.
That's
but
true.
The rest of us are kind of in a rotation of sorts. Bobby and Bernie and
Yeah, we do Thursdays.
I'm part of that rotation along with Pat. We handle certain Wednesdays here and there. This happens to be one of them this week. Alan has moved on to greener pastures.
Pastures.
Too many hours.
Too many hours.
Moved on now to the soiree. Yeah, we put Alan. That's what we
sent
did.
it to the Groove Yard.
We put Alan out to pasture.
Yeah.
That is right.
I'm changing it to Saturday with seltzer, by the way. See if we can charge higher rates.
Charge higher rates. But if you decide to play
If he plays
vinyl
Frank
records, I'm
Sinatra.
not
Not
coming
Not
in.
available?
No.
Okay.
No, not coming in. But so Tony, what do you have planned tonight? Well, you.
I'm actually going to play a little bit of, I don't know, I found my first show that I ever did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On
I
the
found
stage?
it
Not
at the
the
station
rock show.
here.
I mean, like
yeah,
as a
it's
student?
Midnight Progressive on April something of October of 1982, actually.
Wow.
So I just found that show.
Which I was actually partially responsible for naming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Midnight Progressive? Okay.
It was progressive music. We started off, the show was on from 11 to 1 with the jazz show between 10 to 11. That meant we could start playing Monopoly at 11 in those days on Monday nights.
Shades of jazz, yeah.
And then the jazz show went to 10 to 12, and the progressive show started at midnight. So I started saying, yes, it's midnight. It's progressive. It's Midnight Progressive.
There you go.
And
What a
Jim
concept.
Green, who was in charge of the format at the time, said, that's a good name for the show.
That's great. Yeah.
And Bill Moser made like a label that had Midnight Progressive on
The
it.
Midnight Progressive
the little
sticker.
artwork, one of the
Yeah,
first
which is
artworks
great.
I remember for that.
Great logo.
Yeah, Bernie and I were one of the first pioneers, by the way, in progressive rock at this station.
We did the
first
progressive
Bernie,
show.
yeah.
Well, the two of us, remember we
worked
did the
collaborated.
demo? Yeah,
Cool.
we did the demo together.
Wow, very cool.
And what was the first
The
song?
first song was Neil Diamond's Cinnamon Girl.
Neil
It was a nice
Neil
tune,
Young,
but it
yeah.
wasn't getting any airplay.
Wow.
Because it was an album track.
It's an
not a
album
hit.
track.
Yeah, not a single. Yeah, and then
All right,
I brought
I gotta break up this coffee clutch, guys. I gotta run the credits here,
Okay.
and then whatever time we have left, you can continue your conversation. But I want to get all the credits
Okay, get them in.
before
Awesome.
we have the famous 629
Right.
music, the top five
top
hits
five from this date.
of this date, 1965, coming up.
Take notes.
So
There'll be a quiz.
stay tuned. I want to thank Dan Cox, the director of broadcasting today here at WCWP, for helping make this possible, this 50th anniversary show. Bill Moser on hand here today.
Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Great to see you here today. Bernie Bernard here today.
Yeah,
and of
Bernie.
course, Hank Niemark, who was the first voice heard on this radio station 50 years ago today. And he came back. He reprised his sign-on
That's right.
That's cool.
from 1965. So, excuse me. Hank, thank you very much for your time here today. John Cummins, we thank him. He was a part of it. He sent in some great message. Chris Maffey, he's part of the current engineering staff. His help was quite valuable in getting things set up for today's show. Want to thank Alyssa Seidman from the Post Pioneer for being here today. John Corcus, who called in. It was great to hear from John. Bobby G. Now, we call him Bobby G.
Yeah.
Bobby G, he's still in the house. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. Ted David, who called in not once but twice. Only Ted would pull a stunt like that. Thank you,
called
Ted.
collect, though, so
Always
come on.
good. And thanks, Ted, for cutting the liners for us. Alan Seltzer here today. Good to see you, Alan. Ryan Etard from she's the Director of Alumni Relations. She was here earlier. It was great to have her here. Mike Riccio, Larry Brodsky, Harry Lowenthal, Mike Shamari, Mike Hendricks, Bruce Leonard, Joe Honerkamp, who's still with us, Pete Bellotti, Joel Feltman, Jane Bleacher, Neil Marks, and Phil Leibowitz, all part of our WCWP.
And can I say what a phenomenal job you did this afternoon?
Jeff.
You and Pat, just thank you.
Pat Kroll, thank you very much.
Thank you. I got signed up for 2 hours and ended up, we're on here for 3.5.
But you get
so-
overtime.
That's right.
Very good. All right, folks, that does it for the 50th anniversary of WCWP.